My friend says caffeine's a drug. I said, oh, tell your friend, fuck you.
I don't want to be your buddy, Rick. Just want a little breakfast.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to Breakfast Punks, a podcast about weird shit, DIY punk and trashy movies, brought to you by Sham City Roasters and Deadbeat Doughnuts. From Hastings, I'm Dave.
And I'm Siobhan.
And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Jon Ronson TV series, The Secret Rulers of the World. And we're going to be doing our very best to try and describe to you a film called Fateful Findings from 2013, directed by Neil Breen.
Who you're soon to fall absolutely in love with.
Or not.
Or not. Who knows?
Probably not.
On this week's episode, we are eating some vegan treats and self-plug galore. They're my vegan treats. They're Deadbeat Doughnuts. If you haven't already looked me up. Oh, that sounds awful.
Look me up.
That sounds awful. If you haven't already looked up Deadbeat Doughnuts, then please do. It's my vegan donut company. Company? Gosh, that sounds... Business is probably a better word. Business. Here in Hastings. I'm the CEO of Deadbeat Doughnuts. Yeah, look it up. I do vegan donuts down here in Hastings. You already know where we are.
I think you are a CEO, you know. I think we're both CEOs.
I don't feel like a CEO. I'm in my pyjamas. So yeah, look us up. We've got a Instagram page, Facebook, and there's a little shop. We do some merch. And yeah, if you're ever in Hastings, please let me know. I'll be happy to make you some donuts.
We had some lovely bright pink ones with, with sprinkles all over.
Oh, I love a bright pink and a sprinkle.
It was delicious.
It's probably the only reason I ever made these things, just to make a sprinkly, beautiful thing.
Yeah, indeed. And talking about sprinkly, beautiful things, the coffee that we had with the donuts is by Black Coffee Worship, who are some sort of a death metal coffee brand.
It's like Satanist looking. It's got loads of like occult symbols all over it. It's amazing.
Yeah, Black Coffee Worship are based in Liverpool. It's a new company. They just opened this year. We had the 666 blend, which is a very dark roast. Very nice. It went so well with the donuts. It was a bit weird drinking black metal coffee with bright pink sprinkly donuts. But I tell you what, they really made each other pop.
There you go. Made each other pop. Lots of popping. Beautiful. So let's start with a song before we get carried away with all our chat. The first song is from a band called Desbord. I may have said that wrong because they are from...
Debord?
Well, no, Debord sounds like Debarge. And then we're like going down a... the rhythm of the night.
We can always go down the rhythm of the night.
I don't think they'll be appreciative of that. So anyway, the song is called Sin Caminos. They're a band from Buenos Aires in Argentina. They contacted us via our podcast page on Instagram, and I'm really glad they did because this song is banging.
It's fucking brilliant.
It's so good. Yeah. So this song is from Single 2021, which is their release that's available on Bandcamp. There's 2 songs on that. We really struggled to pick which one, so we've just plumped. Yeah, basically. We've plumped for the first one that we heard out of the 2, but they're both amazing, so definitely listen to this, enjoy it, and then go listen to the other song as well. So this is Desbord with Sin Caminos.
Familia me detesta, los vecinos me molestan, me evening, everyone, and the highlights of the news this Thursday.
Breaking news is part of this job.
You are fake news. This is what's happening in your world tonight. It's fucking news.
So I'm going to kick off with my first bit of news, and again, it's a little bit of a self-plug because I want to talk about all the stuff that Toxic What's It's got going on at the moment. I feel like I say this most weeks, but I'm going to explain what Toxic What's It is again. We're a collective down here in Hastings that put on gigs, or did put on gigs before lockdown, and
will do again.
Are planning on putting on gigs again, and record label and distro. We've got a couple of gigs that are booked, which are really exciting. I think one of which I might have mentioned already, but I'm just going to keep going. But the new one that you definitely need to know about is that on the 20th of August we've got Snuff coming back to Hastings, which is going to be fucking amazing. Snuff played the last Toxic What's It gig that we did before lockdown.
Yeah, like May 19th. I weirdly do remember the date.
There you go.
Not May, sorry, March.
Oh yeah,
It would have been May. Wow, no, we did not. We did not put on a legal gig in May 19.
we're not John Josie.
No.
And Snuff are going to be supported by Bobby Funk, who are a fucking amazing band from the southwest. Yeah, they like.
They've
Cats.
done plenty of other.
Actually, all
songs.
these bands like Cats.
Oh.
Bobby Funk, Haste, some old band called Haste. I don't know, some old man. I think they shout. And Butane Regulators. So that's going to be fucking amazing.
I can't wait.
And then on the 26th of November, this one I think I have mentioned. We've got Incisions coming down, and that's again with this band Haste, and also Bruise Control, and at least one, if not two more, who I think are actually confirmed, but they just don't want us to tell anyone.
Who's the other one?
It's you, isn't it?
Oh, well, there's something else.
Oh no, I only meant you. I don't know about the other one.
And don't say me.
All right, cool. So as well as those gigs, we've got some new releases out. Again, I think I mentioned this one already, but at the moment we're still doing pre-orders on the Jodie Foster discography record, which is going to be absolutely fucking brilliant.
That's so good.
We're also doing pre-orders on a band who we played on this podcast maybe 3 episodes ago, maybe 4 episodes ago, a French band called Et on Tuer, Tu les Fous.
I feel like they were in one of our first few episodes.
It was early.
Yeah, early.
The album's going to be called Mange Tes Morts. I don't know if I've said any of that right, but
I think Monge is how you say Monge.
But that's a fucking brilliant album. If you didn't check out our episode with them on, go back and check that out, because the song that we played on there is an absolute stone cold banger.
Stone cold banger.
Yeah. I'm trying to get, it's my DJ script.
I was about to say, I only know Tony Blackburn. I can't call you that. All right, Tone.
I can't think of any others. There was that guy that used to do. Who was the guy that used to do the rock show on Radio 1, and he was like, "Hello."
Yeah. I don't know. I call them all.
He was on Brass Eye. He was on an episode of Brass Eye telling people not to go to prison.
Oh Christ!
You fucking idiot.
Yeah.
That guy. I can't remember.
I mean, you sound like Danny Dyer, so I don't think it's that.
We've also obviously got What's It Cool Fest coming up. What's It Cool Fest is sold out, but there are, I think, still a few Friday tickets left. So if anybody wants to come on the Friday,
Friday's good.
Friday's fucking great. It's like
is it the Restarts?
Restarts, some band called Haste.
Oh
again.
my god!
But the other thing that I wanted to say about What's It Cool Fest, which I definitely haven't said anything about, is that we have, even if you've got a ticket or if you haven't got a ticket, go check out toxicwhatsit.co.uk, because we've got some amazing shirts. We do a shirt every year for What's It Cool Fest. And this one's by Zoe Barrow from Casual Nausea. And it's such a lovely shirt. And I don't know how much we've shouted about it, but you should definitely buy one because they're brilliant.
Tis a beaut.
So yeah, you can pre-order that. I think the way that we normally do it is you can pre-order it and then we actually release them at the festival, so we can either give them to you there or...
Yeah,
we'll
and is it pre-order only? I don't know if there's going to be... Is there any others?
I think it depends. We normally get a few extra.
But don't guarantee it if you want one.
For the sake of this, pre-order only, run, be quick, we're almost sold out.
Yeah, that's all the methods. Lovely. Cool. Well, my first story is just as cool as a DIY punk collective, distro and promotions team, because I want to discuss Eurovision.
That's very similar in a lot of ways.
Entirely similar. Eurovision happened. It was a big deal because it was the biggest post-pandemic... Well, we're still in it, aren't we? But it's the biggest event that's been run globally since the pandemic started.
Is it though? Isn't that Fat Boy Slim gig in Liverpool big?
No, I think there was more people, or this is at least being credited as the biggest one. I don't know how many people were actually in the audience, because this was televised. So the other one was like a bit of a quiet.
Yeah.
Fat Boy Slim did a gig. No one really knew about it till afterwards. This is Eurovision. Everyone around the world watched. Thousands of people crammed in a stadium.
It was very weird because there wasn't that many people at the front. but then everyone was at the back, and they weren't socially distancing.
Where
at
they
all.
would normally have people at the front was actually the green room, which they don't normally have all the people at the front. It was all the bands and all of the artists that had played were at the front instead of an audience.
So that everybody was in the same room, so that if anyone had coronavirus, it made sure that everyone got it.
Yeah,
It
maybe.
seems a bit odd. I just feel like dividing those two up would have made more sense.
Who knows? Who knows? But in short, I enjoyed it. I think Dave lost the will to live, and he is a Eurovision mega fan, so it was a bit sad for that.
No,
but I really enjoyed
I've
it.
got a story to tell about that, I
Oh
think.
gosh.
No, I used to absolutely fucking love Eurovision, and Eurovision always happens almost on my birthday. For many years, I'm pretty sure it was always the
It was the
week of my
weekend of,
birthday,
yeah.
and often it landed on the same day. And so I always used to have Eurovision Song Contest parties, which were pretty legendary.
By the way, happy birthday, David, for last week.
Oh.
Or week before,
Yeah.
whenever we're at now. So,
Thanks.
just keep saying your birthday.
No, I was just talking about Eurovision.
I know.
The two are just twinned in my mind.
I
think.
know.
And then I haven't watched it for a few years. Pretty much once we moved down to Hastings, I think the first year we did actually watch it.
Yeah.
But then I feel like I've just sort of lost track of it. And obviously it didn't happen last year. And I think one of the reasons, I think I've partly worked out, I hated it this year, I really did. But I think it was partly because I wasn't in the mood, but also it's probably because every year I always watch the Eurovision stream of it, which is just the show itself.
Yeah.
Whereas this year we actually watched it on BBC One for like the first time
Oh, and
that we've watched it for ages, and I just thought that their coverage of it, I thought Graham Norton, who I like enough, I've got nothing against Graham Norton, but I thought he was absolutely awful.
He wasn't
in
very good at it, I would
It
say.
was so cringy and shit, his entire thing. And I don't know, there was just something about it that just made me really sad.
Yeah.
Not the music was no worse than it normally is.
Is it because the people you wanted to win didn't win?
Well,
I don't even know who you wanted to win at the end.
Iceland.
Oh, Iceland. Well, you like Germany, and they got 2 points.
I
So
did like
just
Germany, that's
saying.
true. But he doesn't like hate.
Well, he doesn't feel hate. He just feels sorry for you. But so there's a few notable points, I would say. The winners were Italy, which I think was the first time Italy have won in a long time, and if I'm correct, the first time a group has won since Lordi, which was 2006.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And so I've followed them on Instagram since, because I'm a lunatic. I'm so crazy. No, I mean, I'm just a loser. That's what I meant to say. And it
Both
looks
are correct.
it looks like they're a genuine band, because there's pictures of them as teenagers busking. Like, they've been a band
not
since they were young.
surprised. Yeah, I'm not
and I think the dress up was just
But I mean,
Eurovision glam nonsense.
yeah.
But equally,
Well, so was the song.
yeah.
The song was fine. It was a Eurovision. You couldn't.
Well,
I mean, I'm
it
sure
was
like
a Eurovision
Maroon
song, but-
5 were probably a band. that
Yeah,
sang it. Do you know
but
what
I
I
tell
mean?
you what, I did not. I didn't think it was bad. I really liked it, but I just didn't think it was a contender to win. And then it got the public vote by it got 150 more votes than any other. Pretty much about that, because it got 350 something public votes, whereas everyone else got about. The most next one down was about 220 something. So they absolutely crushed it, which was amazing considering. Up until then, the jury had put France and Switzerland at the top. And France, I think, is considered a really good entry, although I didn't understand it personally, but that's nothing against it.
I think it was probably the best song. I didn't like it particularly, but it was probably it was quite a good song.
But then Switzerland was terrible.
Yeah, Switzerland was fucking
and
dodgy.
the first few votes in, I was like, oh, okay, well, this apparently is good, but why?
Hmm.
And so seeing them get utterly crushed at the last minute by Italy's public vote was beautiful. Really liked that. In fact, the reverse voting thing was it is brutal, and it is really harsh because if you're not doing very well and then you're sitting there waiting to hear what your public vote is and it's shit, especially if you got a really good jury vote and then got nothing with the public. I love that stuff.
But I will say, I think that was one, and don't get me wrong, it's been like this for a few years, I think now. But one of the things that I really hated the most about it was how drawn out that entire process is.
It was
and I think
long.
it might be partly because I think it's probably not that abnormal in modern day television to that's how it's such a fake version of building tension.
Oh yeah, it is.
But I think that's probably, if you watch TV a lot, you're probably to some extent an old to it a little bit, but it was a real shock to my system.
I know why they've done it, because it used to be the other way around. They used to announce all the jury votes and then go around country by country getting their public vote, but that meant that you knew who won probably 20 minutes before the last vote is cast.
But they could have just done it so much quicker. There was no need for... There was
no need for Amanda Holden, I can tell you that.
There's
that
a lot.
bad.
There's a lot of things like that. But I will say it was nice to see that man with the saxophone from Moldova.
Was it Moldova?
Yeah, from like 3 years ago. I can't remember what they're called.
I can't remember what they were called, but they had that "Hey Mama" song.
Yeah, hey Mama, don't little down.
And the little foot stomp dance, and he was on the saxophone doing the Running Man.
He's known as the saxophone man.
Well, that was the last time that we watched it properly.
And I enjoyed that one.
So
that
good.
one was quite good.
But anyway, sorry.
No, I was just going to say one other thing that I didn't like about it that I never like is when Sweden don't do very well.
Sweden did very bad.
If I may just explain that. Sweden, the song was fucking great, I thought. It was the best one of the lot. But you
actually don't even mean that. You're just saying because you love to sing it.
Oh no, I can't. But that's a horrible thing to do to someone on live radio that isn't obviously live. But anyway, I can cut that. I used to watch. So one of my favourite things about Eurovision. This is how much I was into it a few years ago. One of my favourite things to watch was to watch the Melody Festivalen. It was the Swedish heats. And it was always it was just like all of the songs in their heats were always, because I think they take it really seriously.
They have a big competition to get their person.
And their competition was brilliant. It was better than Eurovision itself. And that's where Loreen came from, which is one of the greatest songs ever made, full stop, but definitely the best Eurovision song.
It's definitely the best Eurovision song.
No question.
Oh, so good.
But yeah, so that was one. I don't like it when Sweden do well.
Oh, it was called A Million Voices. It's the one I woke up singing, but it's because it was, I think, second last in the... Yeah. Anyway... Some nice things that happened. There was a lot of rock influenced songs this year. Obviously, the last... I say nice. I'm going to go with nice. I'm saying it. Actually, no, I'm not going to say it because Finland was really bad. So, Italy obviously won with their, whatever that was. Lead singer looks a bit like drugged up Perry Farrell, which was nice. It's exactly what I was going for.
Perry Farrell's outfit and everything.
I enjoyed it immensely, so that was fine. But then you've got Finland doing their thing.
Which one was Finland?
Stick your fingers up, something about this.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Which someone's noted here.
That was like a new metal song.
It was really bad. Yeah. Someone's likened it to Linkin Park, which is
it's exactly
beautiful.
What it was like.
But I didn't realise it came straight after or straight before the Germany one.
Of course it did.
Where they've got that person walking around as a middle finger.
No, this is what it's... so when they were showing where they went through all of the different things, it went, I don't feel hate.
And then
I just think sorry. And then the other... And then
Stick
it
your
just
fingers up! Which is definitely, someone's done that cleverly, and I mean, Finland got loads of votes and Germany got none.
Someone should just mix those two songs together. I think
that is very true.
That would make a good one.
That is very true. The Ukraine entry was absolutely amazing, and people are saying it should have done better than it did, but, you know, the good songs don't win, it is what it is. But that was genuinely amazing, and people said they've put far too much effort in for a Eurovision song that didn't win. The first song was an amazing cover of Lady Gaga Bad Romance.
Oh my God.
So I'm not upset about it, but
no.
But I was like, God, this song's good. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And I just sang Bad Romance over the top of the whole thing.
They definitely should be sued for that.
I think there is a potential...
an ongoing lawsuit.
This article I'm reading from has cited it as a problem. But then the main thing that's really good is Russia's song, which didn't get anywhere near the attention via the public vote and the jury vote that it should have. But it's such an improvement on... I don't know, it's just a good thing. What a good thing for Russia to have put out there, a song about being a strong woman. She's dressed up as a Russian doll sort of thing. And I don't know necessarily all the words, but the bits that are in English were about just being a strong woman.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I don't know. I can't claim to know anything more about it, but it was just
because it was
really
in
good.
Russian, that probably didn't... I mean, it definitely did come across, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there was the vast majority was in Russian, so it's difficult for...
And actually, not that I don't know, it's a stupid thing to say, but had a bit more of it been in English, would maybe more people have gotten on board with knowing what it was about. Yeah, but it's very clear what it's about. But I think the point still got across, but I think people were just swayed by Perry Farrell lookalike from Italy at this point. Apparently, because they did really bad with the jury.
I tell you, they weren't swayed by that poor little fat boy that sang for England or Britain. Jesus Christ!
Oh no!
Poor bugger. He got 0 votes and then 0 votes.
And the way that they do it now is they announce the last person's. So whoever gets the least points from the jury, they then announce their public vote. So he's already got 0 from the jury,
and he's not.
And then they're like, and the public vote for UK is 0. And you just think, oh. But he didn't give a shit at this point, I don't think,
I'm
because
sure
you
he
know
did,
it's
but,
coming
at
if you're
that
from
point,
the UK.
what can you do? He just,
Yeah.
he was half cut.
Put on a face. And also, sorry, one last thing. San Marino paying all that money to get Flow Rider in and getting 50 points. And
Flow Rider looks so eggy.
He
as well.
was like...
He didn't get that there was any humour to be taken
He
from
did
this
not
at all.
find it funny at all. Fantastic. But anyway, that's probably enough attention on Eurovision. So, Dave, what's your next thing?
From one version of high art, I'd like to go to another. I've got a bit of a poetry roundup, if I may. Or poetry and zines, really. There's loads of really cool stuff that's coming out. I appreciate that most people don't listen to this podcast for the poetry, so I shall be relatively brief, but I do want to just give a shout out to some really good stuff that's happening at the moment. I've mentioned this press before. There's a press called Between Shadows Press based in New Jersey. They're releasing loads and loads of poetry chapbooks at the moment, and I think about 2 weeks ago they dropped something like 20 new titles. I picked up a few of them and I just wanted to tell you about them really. Beat Street by Eric Keegan, Nobody Forgets by Glenn Binger, and There's This Girl I Think You Should Meet by Claire Richardson. All of them are absolutely brilliant, and I definitely would suggest you finding out about Between Shadows Press. They're really doing some exciting things. Claire Richardson, who wrote the last one that I just mentioned, has also done a split zine with Andy Talbot. It's called Split Lips. It's on sale at the moment. I think last thing I saw, they only had a couple of issues left. And it's a mixture of poetry and photography. I think Andy takes the photos and Claire does the writing, so that's really great. Another shout out to another press that's doing some really good things is Black Flowers. Their tag on Instagram is Black Flowers Online. A little while ago they released a chapbook by a guy called Pete Donahue, who is a Hastings-based poet. And they've just put out another new one called from Violetta Lee called Night Paces. That one's up for pre-order at the moment. They're called the Black Editions, and they're just really beautifully put together chapbooks and zines. I've got the Pete Donahue one. It's got some really amazing artwork in there as well, and it's just a really lovely thing. Also, we haven't caught up with Martin Appleby. We haven't done any Martin Appleby news for a little while.
Oh, he's got something coming out.
So he's started Scumbag Press a little while ago, and he's releasing a new chapbook every month, and he's just put out one by Natasha Helen Crudden, which is called Press Any Key to Continue. I think again there's only a few copies of that left as well.
I think when I last looked there was only 5,
Yeah,
and that was
sounds about
yesterday,
right.
so there might not even be any.
They go pretty quick, to
Yeah.
be honest. So I would definitely follow Scumbag Press and just keep an eye out. Like I say, every month he's putting out a new chapbook. Also, there has been an episode for a little while, but I think there's one coming. Martin also does a podcast called Punk and Poetry Podcast, which you can find on Spotify, and I would definitely go and listen to that. There is one episode that I'm on from quite a long time ago, really long time ago, so God only knows what I say. And one last thing, there's this really nice YouTube program that's being made at the moment called Zinspiration Chat. It's really cool. It's by a guy called Craig, who runs 5 O'Clock Zine Reviews, and a guy called Ryan that makes Pocket Thought Zines. They're basically interviewing different people that make zines, not just poetry, but all sorts of different stuff. They've had some really interesting people on there, and the chats are always really great. So I will put that on our YouTube playlist, and I would really check it out. And one last piece of poetry news is a bit of a self-plug. I put out a poetry chapbook about 3 weeks ago called Poems About Fucking, which you can get now via my Instagram page, which is at fuckballads. I've done a few things for it, which you could check out. Again, I've made, I'll put this on the YouTube playlist. I made a kind of short film to go alongside it, which has all the poems read out over various different images, which I've sort of stolen from various different places. And I also did a live stream a few weeks ago where I kind of talk a little bit about the chapbook and read a few other people's poems and read some poems for it. That's on my Instagram page as well. So if you wanted to support me with that, that would be very welcome. Like I say, you can buy it online, but you can also, if you're in Hastings, it's now available at Cloth and Wax, which is a new record shop, which is in the Goodman's Barbers building.
Yeah, down in the basement. We didn't know. I mean, it's fairly new, so
It's very new, I think.
it's very new. Cloth and Wax is a lovely place run by a chap called Adam, and go in there and have a look because it's got loads of lovely stuff in there, and it's really nice. You can have a little sit down. It's got some lovely seating in there. It is quite small, but the idea it's very comfortable, and you could spend a lot of time. Well, I think we spent about an hour,
I was gonna
maybe
say,
an hour and a half in there.
It's got loads of really
Lovely.
unusual things as well. You'll definitely stumble across. He's got a lot of like really great kind of new records that are really well picked
And
out.
loads of re-releases.
But
and
also
stuff.
it's brilliant, like loads of second-hand stuff.
Yeah.
A really interesting selection.
Yeah, it was really nice. We loved it in there. Other local things that have come up for us in the last month. This is a little bit of... this is what I've been up to in the last month. But I just wanted to give a shout out to 2 businesses. One is Two Snakes Tattoo. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of pain inflicted by them in the last couple of weeks. Oh yeah, of course we have. I've been tattooed by Alexis and Kiska there in the last month, and I don't know, they're amazing. I love them so much. So just wanted to give them a big shout out. I've got a lovely big leopard on my leg now and another palm tattoo.
Which needs a bit of redoing.
Oh, it always does, but you know, I'll be there one day to get that done, I promise. And Dave got his fingers tattooed as well, with fun and joy, because that's very hardcore and scary.
Just like me.
Yeah, hardcore and scary. That's not you. So yeah, Two Snakes Tattoo. Follow them on Instagram, Facebook. Find them everywhere. They've got loads of good artists in there. And the other thing I wanted to give a shout out to was my hairdresser, because I finally got my hair done in the last 6 months of not having it done. Feels a bit pathetic to say, but when you've got green hair and it's just growing out and you look like a weird troll with crap hair. So Nina is my hairdresser. She runs the back room at Emma Hellier hair salon in Bexhill. She's totally vegan. All of her products are vegan and animal cruelty free, and tiny little touches, like every single refreshment she'll offer you is vegan. You don't even have to quiz it. And I had hot chocolate and marshmallows, which felt like a right treat. Anyway, so Nina Nirvana Hair is her Instagram tag and Facebook, so go and have a look at her as well.
A lot of shout-outs this
I know. Well,
this news.
It's been like 4 weeks of not being able to do this.
Yeah, we didn't really acknowledge that. Last week's episode, we did a completely different thing where we ignored all of our usual routines and just did one long episode where we just talked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're probably catching up a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So from things very close to home to something rather further away, I happened to notice that they've just announced the Lollapalooza 2021 bill, and I thought I'd have a little look at it, because I thought to myself, Lollapalooza used to be very cool back in the 90s. Well, not so. I have to admit, I thought that I kind of kept up with modern music to some extent until I had a look at this, but there are a couple of surprises. So Lollapalooza in the 90s, when it first started, it's this is the second Perry
Farrell did
mention.
this.
This is very strange. So Perry Farrell put the Lollapalooza together, and not that I ever went because I was very young, but it certainly was one of those things that when you saw like write-ups of it, they just used to look so fucking cool. They had all the coolest bands from the 90s. It wasn't just bands; they had things like the Jim Rose Circus Sideshow there, all sorts of crazy shit. They had just the bills from the early Lollapalooza. I won't bother going through them. I mean, they're a bit of a grunge fest, but there's just super cool stuff on there. And I thought to myself, oh, cool, Lollapalooza's back. I'm not sure if it is back. I don't know whether it ever went away, but in my head, it went away many years ago. So I brought this up. I thought, Foo Fighters, first headliner. I thought, all right, well, a bit middle of the road, but that's fine.
Yeah.
The other 4 headliners, Post Malone, Tyler, the Creator, and Miley Cyrus. Not quite. Tyler, the Creator's all right, but
I was about to say,
not really in keeping with what I was imagining. But then again, as I look through it, I mean, I don't know any of these bands, and some of their names just jumped out at me, like DaBaby. I don't know who DaBaby is. Who's Marshmello?
Drop the W on Marshmello.
Yeah.
Illenium could be anything.
Yeah,
but I've just realised what you were hiding from me.
Megan the Stallion.
Yeah.
Limp fucking Biscuit are there.
Limp fucking Biscuit.
They're pretty high up. And like Jimmy Eat World are there. Angels and Airwaves. That's one of the pricks from Blink-182.
That's Tom DeLonge doing his
he's the one who likes aliens,
attempt at having a nice time in a kind of pop synthy way. It was very bad.
The front bottoms are there. Like there's a few things here and there, but it is just
no. I can't. I can see Modest Mouse.
It's just
and that's it.
But anyway, Young Thug. But second to top billing, well, not second to top.
No, on the second
line of the thing. Fucking Journey.
I mean, that's the only good thing.
But this is literally, it's Foo Fighters, Post Malone, Tyler the Creator, Miley Cyrus, DaBaby, Marshmello, Illenium, Journey, Megan the Stallion, Roddy Ricch, Kay Tranada, Brockhampton,
Playboy
Carti, Young Thug. Admittedly, Limp Bizkit.
Oh no, Young Thug is good actually. Done a
Polo
good thing
G,
recently.
Trippie Redd.
Steve Aoki's there.
Isn't Steve Aoki a
He,
skateboarder?
I don't know, maybe, but no, he is. I don't know if you call him a DJ or he's something to do with music. But there's a French electro couple called the Bloody Beetroots, or maybe they're Italian. Oh no, I don't know now. No, I'm second guessing myself.
Anyhow,
but yeah, he's involved in some good music. So
the point being is that this entire bill, from top to bottom, made me feel incredibly old.
Yeah, it looks
I was almost relieved to see Limp Bizkit just because it was the first name that I recognised.
Oh yes, now we know.
So yeah, it's really sad. I don't know whether it's because all of this music is utter horseshit, which is what I'm going for, because I can't think that all of this stuff is like really good new bands.
Yeah, I'm really quickly trying to read the rest to see if I spot any
Omar
other
Apollo,
names. And I
Rico
just don't.
Nasty, Earth Gang.
I mean,
Earth Gang I've heard of.
I was going to say, you might be saying some good people. I don't know.
Like Peekaboo?
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know.
They all sound like made up names from a Brass Eye skit. That's the thing.
Oh, there's someone called Chomper.
There's someone called Tonight, but they've just they've just got rid of the O and the I.
Oh.
Tonight.
There's a lot of... I don't understand the removal of vowels to make a band, apart from
but sometimes they make sense, but tonight does not make sense.
No sense.
Riot 10 is, isn't that kind of like 2 Pearl Jam references? So hopefully they're like a grunge supergroup.
Oh, JPEG Mafia.
Emotional Oranges. These are fucking made up names.
Peachtree Rascals. Oh, I love it. Sorry, if any of these bands might be good. Child with 4 eyes.
I tell you what, no one ever takes me up on this offer, but shamcityroasters@gmail.com, email us which of these bands we should listen to, because there's far too many. I was going to try and listen to some of them, but I didn't know where to start.
Brownies and Lemonade All-Stars?
Look, St. John has removed the O from John, so he's St. John. Why?
Very upsetting removal of vowels going on at Lollapalooza.
So Lollapalooza is in Chicago at the end of July and the start of August.
If Lollapalooza removed its vowels...
It would be 3 L's at the beginning, for one thing.
Lopluz.
You can't even do it.
Lopluz.
Oh no, without an Lopluz. Lopluz.
It hurts to actually say that physically.
Anyhow, that's that I do feel extremely old. Over. I mean, I don't think it's bullshit. I think it's very valid criticism.
No, I mean... it is valid criticism.
So, talking about valid criticism, let me criticise you and your accent in this week's edition of Norfolk News.
All right, and hello all you out there listening to this podcast. Cast. Fuck knows. That's not like I've been to Norfolk recent. Well... What's my Norfolk news story this week? Been looking at the Eastern Daily Press website once again on the interwebs.
You sound like you're reading it slowly.
No, I don't read. And what I must say that what I'm about to read you was an exclusive to the Eastern Daily Press website for its very horrendous content.
Is it exclusive because no one else was interested?
I'll let you be the judge of that, I reckon. Now, the title of this piece is Horror Show. DIY dentist pulls 18 of his own teeth out. Now,
sorry, again?
I've got a lot of questions. You want to hear again? Horror Show. DIY dentist pulls 18 of his own teeth out.
How many teeth does a normal human being have?
I am not
It's
entirely
not
sure
18,
that anyone from Norfolk that I've ever met's got 18 teeth. No, I'm
going to
kidding.
count mine. You do your thing and I'll count my
Count
teeth.
your teeth. So, loads of questions here. What? I mean, my main attraction to this piece is the poor bugger that's in the picture. There's a picture of a tooth, and then there's just a picture of a chap with a pint, a Heineken, next to it. So... After his teeth removal, I guess he just went and got himself a pint to steady his hand a bit.
I think I've got 28 teeth.
28 teeth.
So he's got 10 left.
You're assuming that he started with all of the teeth. So let's hear a bit more about this. I mean, there isn't much to it. It's actually pretty horrendous, this story. Poor David Spores removed 18 of his own teeth in lockdown. This antiques dealer was forced to yank out 18 of his own teeth after suffering unbearable agony as he searched in vain for his dentist.
Please tell me you used antique dental tools.
No, David will get to that. He runs the history box in Magdalen Street, which, if you've never been to Norfolk, or Norwich for that matter, Magdalen Street's a beautiful little road. That's right next to Anglia Square, where you can go to QD and get your that's quality discounts. That's where I used to go get my tracksuit bottoms when I was a kid.
Shell suit.
If you're in Hastings, think ESK. If it had a rack where you could buy socks.
Individual?
No, well...
Pairs.
I don't know.
Pairs of.
I
think
but
there's a quick save in Orpington where you could buy individual socks to try and match them up with ones if you've got a hole.
Well, I mean, for those who ain't been... It's a bit like Roy's of Wroxham, but Roy's of Wroxham was far more upmarket than QD. And QD, as far as I'm aware, might still exist. That's where you'd go get your Tupperware for cheap, go get your clip frames for your shit certificates you put on the wall. They had really... sweets I've never seen anywhere else. I'm not convinced they are suitable for all consumptions.
Is it the road that we went many years ago to a cafe on?
Well, yes, you're talking about the Moonlight Cafe.
The Moonlight Cafe.
Where, oh fuck, that's beautiful. The sort of breakfast where they hide the fried bread. You didn't even know there was going to be fried bread, and then you're digging in under your beans.
But there was also...
David's not having fun with his beans, but then he's like, oh my gosh, fried bread?
No, I think I wouldn't have had any beans. But no, there was an old lady there with a tattoo on her face. And then there was, I think, a girl who might have had a learning disability on the other side of the cafe. And
apologies if you're listening, my Norfolk loves, and that
I
might
don't
be
think
you.
they're listening to this podcast. But they just suddenly started hollering at each other. Not in an angry way, but just... I can't remember what it was. One of them got excited about... what they were
I believe, David. No, we was all being invited to their Anne Summers party.
Oh my God,
that was going on that night. And she was loudly announcing where the address of the property was, announcing it to the room, which at that moment in time had about 4 elderly gentlemen in it.
I think we sat
that were
on
all
their
staring at
tables
us because
as well.
I think we was on one of the regulars' tables. And
oh, that was nice.
That was nice.
I hope that's still there, that Moonlight Cafe.
I imagine it probably still is.
It looked gentrified a bit. The last time we were in Norwich, we went down that street and they had like, I mean, I can't talk, but they had like a bit of a craft coffee place there. And they had,
I think Norwich Little Shop of Vegans is on that road as well.
It is.
But Moonlight Cafe, holding strong, selling its dodgy sausages and whatever else, getting invites to your Anne Summers parties, just pop in.
I wonder if he had eaten too many breakfast from the Moonlight Cafe and that's why he needed to rip out 18 of his own teeth.
He being Dave Spalls, the actual subject of this bit, not Moonlight Cafe. So let's get back to him. So actually this is a terrible bit of story, I must say. I feel a bit awful for this man. It was unbearable. I felt like no one cared. I kept calling dentists who told me they had full waiting lists and that they couldn't help me.
So he ripped 18 teeth
So
out.
what he did, he finally decided that the only answer was looping string around the tooth and using brute force to take each one out.
Did he do that thing that people used to do where they slam the door? You put it to the door handle and you slam the door?
He ain't been too specific on the details, which I only can imagine is because of the trauma that he went through.
Well, he's having a pint. He looks happy in the picture.
I mean, good for him. It's been sorted out because in a chance encounter with someone from a dentist surgery who overheard the story as he was pleading with a receptionist, a dentist has offered to fix it all.
Well, he's already done it. What can he fix?
I think he's already ripped all his teeth out. So I don't know what he's going to do for him, but well done to whoever that dentist is that's going to sort his mouth out now that he's ripped all his teeth out. Poor bugger. We'll put a picture of the man up with his pint, I reckon, because it's very...
Can you see his teeth in the picture?
Oh, he's very much got his mouth shut.
Yeah,
very much.
Would,
well, he's all gums, isn't he? All gums and blood.
If you've got to a point where 18 of your teeth hurt so much you've got to rip them out...
I mean, I think he's got a problem, isn't he? A big old problem in his mouth if all of his teeth need to come out. Or in his
mouth or somewhere in his head.
Also, I feel like if you've got a bit of an achy bit in your mouth... 18 teeth, that's your whole head.
Did
There's
he
something wrong
accidentally?
with
Did he
you.
want to take one out and he accidentally put the string around the whole of the bottom ones or something? Just
Oh,
let
fiddle plops. That's not the right one. Next one. Oh, no, that don't hurt. Next one. Oh, shit, all my teeth out. Anyway, I don't know. It's gone on a bit long, this.
Yeah, you should never do dentistry by like trial or error.
It sounds like this is all error. But poor chappy with no teeth.
Should we play some music?
Yes, please.
So next we're going to play Riviera Kid, who are a band from Margate. This song is called Black Dot, and it's originally from their CD EP, which was called It's Not a Matter of A or B, which was released in 2018. But it's just recently been reissued on a split CD with Brazen Hussey, who we played on this show a few episodes ago. Again, both bands are fucking great, so that CD is awesome. It's come out via Inner Magic Recordings, which I think we talked about a few weeks ago as well. Mm-hmm. They're doing some really good things. And yeah, so this is Riviera Kid with Black Dot. Welcome back to the Breakfast Punks podcast. We're now going to get to our main topic of this episode, which is the programme The Secret Rulers of the World. It's a 5-part documentary series that was shown on Channel 4 in 2001, made by a guy called Jon Ronson. There's a book to go along with it, which is called Them. Jon Ronson is an excellent writer. He's a journalist fundamentally, but he's made a number of different films and documentary series, and also written the book The Men Who Stare at Goats, which you've probably heard of because it was made into a Hollywood film. And my favourite thing that he's ever done, which is a 2011 book called The Psychopath Test. Like I say, he also made this TV series to go alongside his book Them, Adventures with Extremists, which is called The Secret Rulers of the World. And it covers a number of different topics. Each episode covers a different specific area of conspiracy theory. They're very much tied by the fact that everybody in them believes that there is a sort of new world order, or that there's some shadowy elite hidden behind the powers that be that's kind of ruling the world. And Jon Ronson kind of does he's got a kind of gonzo sort of journalistic style where he really gets involved with the subjects. He's got a really good way of... He's not a million... I think probably the most obvious comparison would be to someone like Louis Theroux. He sits on the fence, as it were, and just allows people to kind of hang themselves, really, for the most part. Which is obviously quite difficult, particularly in this context, because throughout the series and as part of the book, he spends time with white supremacists, white separatists, lots of really insane people, proper like Nazis, and in the book he goes and visits the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, which isn't actually in the book but is quite a funny little story actually. And there's quite a lot of humour to be found in these people, but obviously the type of people that they are is kind of difficult to I don't know, he makes it very easy to laugh at them, which I think is quite an interesting thing that he does. This is all particularly interesting, and definitely from his point of view, because he is actually Jewish, and so he's often going into these places that are like out in the middle of nowhere and interviewing these proper like anti-Semitic people and just sort of staying quiet about the fact that he is Jewish himself. And I think at one point, again, this isn't actually in the TV show, but at one point, some skinhead comes up to him and starts questioning his like bloodline and this sort of stuff, and won't let him leave until he tells him and stuff. So I mean, he really did get his hands dirty. And get in there.
And the first, again, it's not in the TV series, but the first chapter of the book is he's hanging around with an Islamic extremist, and ends up basically becoming his personal chauffeur by accident, just driving him around to various events. And throughout that, they mention their feelings about Jewish people and how very anti-Jewish people they are, and he doesn't make mention of it. And right at the end, the extremist man is just like, "Oh, I know you're Jewish. In fact, the one thing I don't like about you is you weren't proud of it. You should have mentioned it ages ago." He's like, "I don't care." Except he does care. It's part of this man's thing. But yeah, anyway, it's interesting the ways in which it comes up and how weirdly difficult it must have been to sit back and... Well,
it's quite interesting as well because, and this is more so in the book, because I think the TV show definitely concentrates more on a very specific area of conspiracy theorists. But in the book, he goes and deals with all of these people, and most of them hate each other and have conspiracy theories against each other and what have you, or think that each other are on the side of whoever it is that they think is the secret ruler of the world. But the one thing I feel like they all have in common is that they all have a problem with Jewish people.
Yeah.
I think that's so. I mean, he does put himself, quite in there.
I mean, that's telling of what these people believe about New World Order as well.
Yeah, totally. But we'll maybe get to that. But one of the other interesting things about this is that the book was written and the series was made in the run-up to 2001. So it actually came out in 2001. So all of this is literally happening. I mean, some of the things that he covers are a little bit older than this, but he's writing this book just before 9/11 happens, like just before. And so obviously 9/11 changed the world an awful lot.
But spawned some of the biggest conspiracy theories.
Absolutely, but it's both interesting, and again we'll tackle this as we go through it. But it's kind of interesting because so much is different now, but so much is the same now, and you can totally see some of these conspiracy theories almost seem quite quaint and nice in comparison to like QAnon and stuff, but actually they are also incredibly similar. And there's a lot of people as well that he meets at this time who are relatively young, who go on to play quite big roles in things like QAnon and Trump as well. I mean, in the context of where we are in the world right this second, it's quite interesting to go back 20 years and see where we were 20 years ago in the context of all of this stuff, because I think this is one of, a lot of this is like leading to Trump and leading to QAnon and leading to all of this stuff. So, like I say, we'll use the book a little bit for reference here and there, but fundamentally we're just going to use the actual TV show itself, and we're going to go through each episode. I should say that the entire series is on YouTube. I would really, really, really recommend it. It's such a great series.
And just to say, each episode tackles a huge topic, so we really are going to try and be brief on each episode, just give you an overview of what it is and our feelings about it, because if we discussed every angle of each episode, we'd be here for days, because it's a really huge and interesting subject. So again, please go watch the episodes.
One of the reasons why there's so many conspiracy theories is because it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole on this stuff. I did find myself watching quite a lot of David Icke speaking engagements.
I didn't really know a lot about any of this until I watched the programme, and so I'm suspecting that many of you may already know tons of this, but some of you might not know anything. So I think it's worth, in each episode, overviewing what the subject matter is, and then maybe giving our opinions on it. See where we go, and hopefully it won't take 2 hours.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we've divided it up into two, because we are aware that recently this podcast is getting a bit out of hand with how long it's getting.
So without further ado, the first episode is called The Legend of Ruby Ridge. It's about the Weaver family, who are a family that believed in a new world order and a tyrannical elite of international bankers enslaving the world. They were sick of society and sick of the threat of their government, so they separated from society and moved to the mountains in Idaho, to a place called Ruby Creek. Ruby Ridge isn't actually the name of the place.
No,
it
it's
came
like a
about
mixture of one place and another place, I think. Yeah.
Ended up rolling off the tongue when reported a lot.
Probably why it's called The Legend.
Yeah,
Ruby
The
Ridge,
Legend
this
of
is not a
Ruby
real
Ridge.
place.
So this family are living separately, but they end up being involved in a local white power group for the social side, not the politics. And they're quite clear that they never agreed with the politics. But unfortunately,
John Ronson says that they go there just for the picnics.
the picnics and the treasure hunts.
Yeah, and they quite like the people, I think is how he describes it.
But it is the Aryan Nations, which is the biggest white power America group, or at least it was a big one there, I guess. So whilst attending this group, Randy Weavers, the dad of the family, is approached by an FBI informant, asked to sell him a gun, which he does, and then they trick him and say, look, you need to be an informant for us, otherwise you're going to go to court for this. And he makes a big song and dance and says, no, I'm never going to work for the government, you are the worst people ever, I'm not going anywhere. So they then hole up in the mountains again, and he avoids going to court because he thinks he's been tricked into this by his government. How dare they? So the US Marshals become involved, and one thing leads to another. The US Marshals surround his house and end up surveilling him. They're scared of being surveilled, and lo and behold, they end up finding cameras and finding out they are being watched. So one day, the US Marshals get too close, dogs start barking, and the family run out to see what's going on. The US Marshals shoot the dog, shoot his 14-year-old son in the back as he's running back to the house.
Well, they shoot him once in the front. And then
blow his arm off.
Yeah, they blow his arm off, and then as he's running off, they shoot
him
him up the back with a machine gun.
So the family go hide in the house a bit. Another day happens, and a sniper ends up shooting the mum in the face while she's holding her 1-year-old baby. And the mum's not doing anything at this point. She's shouting to her husband, I think. So then the family end up locking themselves in the house, and it becomes a siege to which the US
everyone
army,
gets involved. So
the army and the FBI
initially,
are all surrounding this house.
I think the CIA too. I think.
Yeah. And it leads to a 10-day siege before eventually the family come out and take it to court. Along the way, the dad does shoot and kill a marshal, which I think is why this whole thing ends up escalating to the point that it does. They don't report on the fact that the marshals killed so many of their family for no reason, but we'll get on to that. So yeah, that's pretty much what the programme's about.
Yeah, I mean, he goes to court as well, and he's found not guilty of murder, and his
the family
children
friend.
are given £1 million each.
Yes, well, the surviving children.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a real embarrassment for the FBI and the ATF, I think.
Yeah.
And at the time that it was going on, so this is in 1992. At the time that it was going on, I think that area was probably still is, full of a lot of people that had similar beliefs to the Weaver family. And so it became a very public meeting of, like, conspiracy theorists. And because within the conspiracy theorist community, there's an awful lot of Aryan nations and white power groups and things like this. And so there was a lot of scenes at the bottom. They lived on the top of a hill, and there was a lot of scenes at the bottom of more and more like army trucks coming in and all of this sort of stuff.
What is it? The National Guard? I think the National Guard turn up.
Yeah. They said that 400 people eventually are there, and so there's loads of people at the bottom of the cliff who are, anti-New World Order people. There's loads of people that kind of come from out of the area, and they're all sort of down there with placards saying that and the Weavers sort of become heroes to those people in some ways. And I think one of the really interesting things about it is the kind of mix-up in the narrative of these people that believe that their government is after them. If in real life their government really does go after them, which is exactly what's happened here, where the conspiracy... where the conspiracy theory ends and where reality begins.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, he thought they were paranoid and they thought they were being surveilled by this sort of tyrannical government. And of course they actually were being surveilled by people from the FBI who were sort of government representatives or whatever.
And at this point all that they'd done is
been tricked.
Well,
really,
this is the problem. They have been tricked, and I mean, let it not be known, they did attend a white power group.
Yeah, sure.
Like, it's a problem, but they weren't, saying that they agreed with it. But essentially, it was an armed family that no one knew what they were about.
Yeah.
But all they did know is they attended a white power group.
And also,
which is
it's fine to
scary
say
to a government.
It's totally true to say, oh, come on, they did attend a white power group, but actually, fundamentally, they had every right to attend a white power group.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they should be shot, and a
exactly.
14-year-old child certainly shouldn't be shot.
No, of course.
Nor should a dog.
But this is this is the only reason they were interested in them, because he wouldn't become an informant and he had guns.
Yeah.
That's it, and they lived in the middle of nowhere. They referred to the FBI often referred to their house as a compound, which was heavily guarded and heavily armed. It was essentially a plywood house that fell down really quickly.
Yeah.
And
they actually called it a fortress.
Well, yeah, they called it a fortress, but actually the family could hear them talking through they could hear them talking through the walls, and when the people did come to negotiate with them, they talked through the walls. They could hear people walking by them with 15 foot to spare. So it wasn't really a fortress. It was definitely just a shanty shack in the middle of the mountains.
Well, another side of the whole conspiracy thing as well is the way that the media then dealt with this. So like you touched on there, all of the media headlines were white supremacists in a compound, in a fortress, in a mountain, killed a marshal.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that the programme does is it shows a load of current affairs programs. I can't remember the guy's name.
Bill Meyer?
Meyer, yeah. It's sort of like a comedy panel.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about this thing, and they're absolutely they just don't. I don't know. They're almost taking the piss out of the family who have had a 14-year-old killed in cold blood and their mother dead. And by the way, one of the worst things about this is that when they killed the mother, because they then hold up, they were literally in a room, because it's a tiny little shack. They were in a room with their dead mother just laying there.
Under
and
they
couldn't do anything about it. So if they wanted to go to the kitchen to eat anything, they had to walk past. The kids had to walk past their dead mother, and the guy had to walk past his dead wife. It's a really
with the dead son in the shed outside.
Yeah, it's a really disgusting scenario. If you think about it. But yeah, these people within the media, they were just basically come on, these guys are if you're gonna bring your children up in the Aryan nation, then you deserve everything you get. And it's well, that's not actually fair. It's not fair. I have to say, obviously, the Aryan nation is scary and horrible and terrible, and everything about it is awful. But it's not fair to be oh, you just deserve to die because you have different political beliefs to me.
And they didn't refer to any of the deaths of any of the humans. They were just oh, that dog had rights. And they really do just take the piss out of this kind of horrible thing that's really horrible thing that's happened to this family.
But so the way the programme works is then Jon Ronson sort of catches up with one of the daughters, Rachel, and Randy Weaver himself, and that's where it kind of then gets into some. It's quite an interesting thing to follow. Randy Weaver at this point is making money by going around to gun shows, and he's written a book, and he's sort of signing books and getting his photograph taken with people. And obviously the people at all of these gun shows, and the gun shows pop up in a lot of the series as time goes on. But obviously they're a real hotbed of, again, racists, militiamen, conspiracy theorists, all the sort of craziest people that all want to buy guns are all sort of in this one place. So, I mean, his life kind of then goes... I think he's got a really young girlfriend as well, isn't he?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that being...
Not that matters.
No.
You kind of follow his life now, and obviously both him and his daughter... Probably it's much easier to be sympathetic towards the daughter, unquestionably, because she's just this poor person who's got caught up in this thing, had this horrible experience, watch her mother get shot by the government. She's kind of obviously... There's a scene where they go to a bar... And this guy suddenly appears with his acoustic guitar, and he sings her the ballad of Ruby Ridge or something. And she's sobbing her heart out. And this guy is just an old redneck dude that obviously he's I've waited for.
I moved to Idaho to be near this area, and I wrote this song, and I always wished I could sing it to you.
I really wonder whether that was set up, because it just seemed like such an unlikely thing to have happened. But equally, I don't think it was set up.
Well, she said at the end, "Gosh, I don't know what to say when things like that happen."
Yeah.
So it must happen a lot, or more often than.
I mean, I know
does to
absolutely
us.
nothing about rural Idaho, but I suppose it's probably full of some quite unusual people.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not really sure. But I mean, and then Randy Weaver is just this guy that's obviously seen some horrors, and he's obviously really burnt out. I think he says at one point when he's being interviewed, after that I didn't really give a shit about anything, and to be honest, I still don't.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And he does really look like a guy. He doesn't really make jokes about the thing, but he kind of has these awkward sort of where he's making light of certain things, and you can just tell. He's just this like broken dude.
He definitely mentions PTSD, and he goes, "Oh, of course we've all got post-traumatic stress disorder." Like,
Yeah.
and you're right. He talks like someone that's just like, "Oh, and then this happened. Oh dear."
Yeah.
You're just like, "Oh my god!" Like, this is a man who thought the government was after him, and then the government was after him,
Yeah.
and not only did they surveil him, they shot his son and his wife.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you recover from that? And then charged him with the murder of a US Marshal, where it wasn't actually ever clear where those shots come from, because a lot of people were shooting. But I mean, that was the other thing that the media did. They tried to spin it and say that they shot the dog. It was friendly fire. Lots of nonsense where maybe he shot his son in the back, even though, and it got very, very silly.
Well, there was loads of stuff that because they also interview like the sheriff or something, don't
Yes.
they? And he's just like this cold-blooded.
Well, he still thinks they did all right.
Yeah, he just
didn't
doesn't
they?
give a fuck. Like, and it's quite incredible to watch him speak, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was definitely some of the sort of lies that were being spread at the time. Again, specifically because basically the ATF and the National Guard were just making a complete meal out of this situation, completely fucked it up, and so they were desperately were trying to tell the media that it was someone else's fault and not theirs. And one of the really interesting things about this, although Jon Ronson doesn't really talk about this in the programme, but it's regularly referred to in almost all of the episodes, and was an extremely big event definitely in like the conspiracy theorist world, was that whilst the Weavers were on trial for all of this, there was a very similar but much bigger and much more dramatic version of this exact thing, which is the siege on Waco.
Which happened a year later?
It happened a year later, but it was 7
During the
days. I
trial.
think 6 days into the trial.
Yeah.
So whilst this trial is going on, and the FBI are basically being picked apart by the courts and found to just be completely culpable for the entire thing, they suddenly decide that this group of religious, admittedly lunatics, with lots of guns, but who aren't really doing anyone any harm, they decide that they're going to go in and they're going to disarm them.
Yep.
And of course they say, no, you're not having our guns, because, this is the belief of these people. And, I mean, Waco's a really big subject, which we probably can't go into here, because, like I say, it's not really brought up in the programme. But it is a really sort of big event that the FBI... Well, a conspiracy theory is that the FBI deliberately started the Waco Siege to almost have a second crack at it, so that they could
Show
get
that
it
they
right.
did it right,
and
yeah.
then But I mean, what actually happened was 76 people, a good chunk of whom were very young children, were basically burnt alive in the Waco Siege. And
in a fire that they still claim was set from inside.
I mean,
which,
the Waco.
let's
just
not go
such
there,
a
but
fucking dark- it's so crazy. But
I didn't go.
but it's insane that this happens whilst these people are on trial for, like I say, something that's very similar. And I mean, Waco will go on to we'll talk about it a little bit in the Timothy McVeigh episode, which is a little bit later on, because that influenced him. But one of the things about Waco is that Randy Weaver actually went back, and I think at the time that the programme was being made, this guy Alex Jones, who we'll definitely talk about more in probably the next episode of the podcast, because he's more in the later part of the series, but you probably know who Alex Jones is because he's still about. He rebuilt the Waco church, and so I think Randy Weaver had sort of something to do with it. But to be honest, I think he was just a celebrity that used to go there, and people he became a celebrity within the sort of within these conspiracy theorist people's world, which is kind of crazy. And speaking of celebrities, maybe we should move on to episode 2, shall we?
Yes.
So talking of celebrities within the conspiracy theories world, the second episode of The Secret Rules of the World is all about David Icke, who is someone who I'm guessing most people know about, but I'll just give a very quick rundown. David Icke was a footballer who played, I think, for Leicester, and he had arthritis, I think, so he had
21,
to,
he had to stop.
He had to retire at 21. I think he was a goalkeeper, and then he became like the face of Grandstand, and he was really well known during the sort of 80s and very early 90s for being a sports presenter. And I think in 92 he went on the Wogan programme. Again, I feel like I probably need to even explain what the Wogan programme is, although I'm sure loads of people know what it is. But the Wogan programme was like a kind of topical like interview programme with Terry Wogan, who used to just have like 2 or 3 guests on. I think it was every night. It was like proper mainstream prime time BBC One programme. And David Icke went on there as one of his guests in a shell suit. Not that that's important, but
it is important.
It's a very nice shell suit.
Well, the colour of it is important.
Oh, it is important. Sorry.
Doesn't blue worn off? Anyway, don't worry. Read the book. It's important for some reason.
David Icke goes on the Wogan programme and basically says that he's the son of God, and that loads of catastrophic events are about to happen to the world unless everybody changes their ways. It's not really very clear. He's not really given much of a chance to talk, which is fair enough. There's a really famous bit where David Icke, after talking about all of this stuff for a while, David Icke says, "It's interesting that a lot of you in the audience are laughing because it's good to laugh. It really gets rid of some stress about what's going to happen."
Yeah.
And Terry Wogan just turns around and says, "They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you." And it's quite an iconic piece of TV, I think. At this point, maybe we should get to his mental health problems later. Actually, let me just quickly go through the story. So David Icke then goes on to become, over time. So initially he's completely ridiculed by everybody. He comes to this realization because of his own ridicule after this thing, that basically look what a very small amount of people within the media can do to somebody. Look how they can skewer the narrative about a person and make them obviously he did it to himself to some extent, but in his mind he was like, I've gone from one of the most popular people on television to this complete mockery. And that sent him down a very long path. And eventually what that path led to was that he believes that the world is being run by people who are secretly 9-foot lizards or hybrid lizard people. This includes Willie Nelson, the Queen Mother, who's obviously she's dead now, so she's gone to lizard heaven, I suppose. I think probably Prince Philip, so he's off to lizard. Actually, in fairness,
he was.
I mean,
I think it was breaking through his skin.
If anyone's in lizard hell, it's him. This guy Boxcar Willie.
Yeah, Boxcar Willie.
I don't even know who Boxcar Willie is, but I always like that he's one of them.
There were some American presidential people I think he mentioned.
Yeah, there was a bunch, and some of them were sort of historical. I think Nixon probably was. Possibly. I think definitely
Reagan.
Clinton. Both Clintons.
I feel like Reagan.
Maybe Reagan, and I think also George Bush
and George
Junior.
Bush Senior.
Oh, Senior.
Yeah,
one of them,
both
but not the other. Oh, both.
No, both of them.
So he decided all these people were lizards. So we absolutely cannot go into the whole backstory of David Icke. He's since then written loads and loads of books. He still regularly gives these talks at generally sold out venues for the most part, some of which last for 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, you think we talk? Yeah. This man can talk about lizards for 10 hours.
He's got an awful lot to say. Now, like I say, we can't really go into David Icke's full thing. I think at some point we might, if I can ever get my head fully around what David Icke is trying to say, it might be worth us doing an episode about it, but that will be a long time in the future. But what the film is about, the Secret Rulers of the World episode, is largely about that he goes to Canada to do a speaking tour, and a bunch of far left people, some from Anti-Racist Action, and then some from some other Canadian smaller things that I've not really heard of, including I think the candidate for the Green Party in Vancouver, which is where he is. They think that when David Icke says giant lizards, he actually means Jewish people. And so therefore they kind of try to get him taken off the air. They try to get all of his sort of speaking commitments and things cancelled, and they do quite well at it. He gets cancelled off of 2 radio stations, I think a couple of book signings, and I think at least 1 TV thing. And the programme, which is, again, Jon Ronson at his gonzo best, really, because he really gets in with the sort of the anti-Ike committee, and he's also with David Icke all the time. So there's one bit at the end where they plan the last thing that they want to do is throw a pie at him in a book signing, and Jon Ronson is literally with them when they're planning the pie, but then meets up with David Icke when he's going to the bookshop to get the pie, and he sort of says, I feel really bad because I feel like I should probably tell David Icke that he's going to get the pie thrown at him. But yeah, and so the main discussion really, so the Anti-Defamation League, which is a New York-based charity.
That's right, organisation.
Organisation, which basically tries to pick out anti-Semites and work out what a lot about like coded language and stuff, of which within conspiracy theories there is a lot of coded language, and it does generally tend to be aimed at Jews. And Jon Ronson does point out that there's a lot of like Nazi propaganda about Jewish people from the Second World War, where they are there's drawings where the Jewish people are kind of represented by lizardish looking people. David Icke outright says that when he says 9-foot lizards, he means 9-foot lizards.
Well, because he's got this belief that an alien race of lizards once came down and interbreeded with humans, and then there's all these different categories that he can go into. So, but
of course, the ADL believe that when he says that, what he means is the people that they interbred with were Jewish people. So. And it turned. What's really interesting about this episode? So I mean, I think that's largely what it is. What's really interesting is who has the conspiracy against who, and everybody is banging heads against each other in such a way that almost everybody's conspiracy theory towards each other is making the other one just get worse and worse and worse at their role, and kind of losing sight, I think, of the actual matter at hand, which is this man going around Canada spewing racism, or is it not? And one of the things that I found quite interesting was that one of the main things that they use as an example of why David Icke is a racist is because the UK group Combat 18, who are at the time were I think probably the biggest racist organisation in the UK. I don't even know if they exist anymore. They probably call themselves Proud Boys now, I imagine. They went to one of his speaking engagements and wrote up a review of it in their like newspaper or whatever. And in their newspaper they said something like, he refers a lot to like international bankers, brackets, but of course we know what he means, salt beef sandwich anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So Combat 18 believe that David Icke is a racist, and therefore a racist organisation has gone and they've supported him and they've written him up in a positive way, right? So then the ADL, the Jewish group, see that and say David Icke is a racist. David Icke says, hang on a minute, I'm not a racist. I think that you, the ADL, sent Combat 18 to see me and write me up so that I would look like a racist. And so you just end up in this total mindfuck of all of these people. At every turn, everybody else thinks everybody else has a conspiracy against them. And it's quite interesting because one of the really interesting things, again, that Jon Ronson points out, is that particularly at this time, because like I say, it's like 99, 2000, just after the World Trade Organization riots in Seattle, what he was pointing out is that actually, politically, all of these people are more or less saying the same things. They're just saying it in different ways. And there was a lot of talk about this with Trump as well. It was like a lot of the things that Trump was against, superficially, because he doesn't believe in anything because he's a psychopath, but superficially what he was saying he was against was really similar to what a lot of people in the extreme left are also against. But they were just using different words for it. And I feel like that was the really interesting thing about this David Icke episode, is that the racists were saying all the Jews are wrong. The Jews were saying David Icke saying all the Jews are wrong. David Icke's actually insane and believes that 9-foot lizards are what's wrong. And it's really interesting. I don't know, I just found that really interesting, but I couldn't really get my head around it. I couldn't really come to any conclusions about it. What do you think about David Icke's mental health?
No matter what he says, and I appreciate he's a difficult man, and I don't believe a word of his lizard shit, he does bring up some interesting conversations around government control and stuff, and I don't agree with him at all on most of his things, but I can't help but feel, and I don't mean it in a patronising way, but it's going to come across really patronising. I feel a little bit sorry for this man who one day has had some kind of breakdown where, because it's very classic in paranoid, delusional mental health issues to one day wake up and believe that you're the son of God. I mean, that does happen more often than not.
Or that people are watching you, or that people are not what they seem.
Exactly. And when you look at his life, like, he was going to be, he wanted to be a footballer. He suffers this trauma at 21 of not getting to be that. His life changes. Whether that leads to things, I don't know. But it's not uncommon for these, what look like minor traumas, but actually completely change your life, can lead to your mental health doing a weird thing. And, believes he's the son of God, has the opportunity to tell the world that, which many paranoid and unwell people don't have, gets to really show it off, I don't know, uses his thoughts to figure out a different way of the world working, and goes with it.
Yeah.
And I just... when he's getting ridiculed and when he really believes what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think
like, he's making a lot of money, so he's not, there's also a very good financial benefit to being as unwell as he is. And he's successfully leading a life, so it's not, impeding on it too much. But I think he's just spouting genuine madness. But with some really interesting thoughts. I think the guy who Alex Jones, no, not Alex Jones, is that his name? The radio presenter that pops up every now and then. He quotes him as saying he's really forerunning the cause and really is saying all of the most amazing things. And then at the end he discredits it by saying, and by the way, the people who are secretly ruling the world are 12-foot lizards. And he likens it to, it's like taking a turd in the punch bowl. Yeah. The punch is really good, everyone's going to drink it, and then you only take one shit in it and no one wants it anymore.
But he's got a conspiracy theory about David Icke.
Oh,
he thinks that he's doing this deliberately.
Oh, he thinks he's been sent in.
He thinks that he's a conspiracy theorist, which is getting really close to the truth.
Yeah.
But David Icke has been sent in to become a more popular version of him, but who at the end makes everyone think he's mad to discredit it. So, I mean, that's another interesting... This is another, conspiracy theorists having conspiracies against conspiracy theorists.
Well, the problem with paranoid people is they can always rationalise anything.
Of course, yeah.
And that's what's happening here. It's shitloads of paranoid people getting together and going, oh, I know how this has gone. They can't handle that there's an unknown. They can't handle that the world's not very nice. Yeah. So they make up a reason for why that is. And it's usually self-centred. It's usually they're not the problem, everyone else is, but they're special. And lo and behold, you've got tons of these people screaming at each other the opposite views. But like you say, often coming from the same place, but they can't handle it.
Having watched a little bit of David Icke talk, and we've watched a bit.
I've watched a couple of hours of it.
And I mean, I have to say, I honestly would say, if you just looked at him, if you just gave him a chance and listened to what he said, I would say about 50% of it is wise.
Yeah.
It's really well thought out, really quite intelligent, really good critique of the modern world.
Yeah.
And he and sometimes it's definitely often a bit close to the mark as to what we're comfortable with, but actually he tends to. So I saw him being interviewed about cancel culture the other day, and a lot of it came about based on the fact he was often talking about, and I can't remember the exact phrase that he used, but it was definitely specifically Jews. Okay. So he was talking about Jews, and he was saying that they were trying to get him cancelled everywhere he goes, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. Mm. And they've been saying he's a Holocaust denier and all of this sort of stuff. And he was talking about cancel culture in a way that, had he not said a word about himself or his problem with a Jewish group, I would have been like, fuck, this guy's...
What a wise man.
What an incredible way of looking at the world. You've really put into words something that I think a lot of people feel, but haven't really got the words to say it.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about David Icke is that he isn't a Holocaust denier.
No.
But the problem is, so he continuously says he's not a Holocaust denier, and he references the Holocaust repeatedly. The problem is that, and this is something else that was talked about, every time he says, I'm not a Holocaust denier,
is that code?
They think it's code for him saying, I am a Holocaust denier. And every time he acknowledges the Holocaust, they think it's a code for... And the trouble is, in this fucked up world that he lives in, they could be right.
Yeah.
I mean, he might well be all of the things that they say he is. So it's crazy.
Well, Jon Ronson puts that to him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then he's just like...
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's my problem. But it's also, like you say, it's so cyclical. It's such a problem.
That's a really interesting bit. He says something like, he says to him, when you say that you've not got anything against the Jews, some people think that that's you saying that you've got a problem with the Jews. And he said, well, who's mad in this? Who's mad now, me or you?
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, you've got a point there in a way. But then I don't know. Are you an anti-Semite?
But
I
then,
still don't know.
but then the problem is you've started talking about lizards, and it's like if the lizard thing is a code, then you're horrible. If it's not a code, then you're mad, and then you are a madman. And then what?
Here's something else, just from a mental health perspective. Like one of the things that I kept thinking of is, like, a long-standing delusional disorder is quite rare. Like I would say, in my career as a mental health nurse, I only met probably 4 or 5 people probably in that entire time who had like a long-standing delusional disorder which was never going to go away. They absolutely believed in one certain thing, and it was like you say, it was one of those things. I'm the son of God, or someone's watching me in my house, or the TV's talking to me, or whatever. Loads of people have those for short periods of time, and they get treated and they get better. Don't get me wrong, loads of people have delusional ideas, but what I'm saying is those people where really treatment is just out of the window. Like they're absolutely, whenever I have on night shifts, I can think of 2 people specifically where I've had hours and hours and hours long conversations with them, where you listen to them and you try and read, because I find it interesting, and I used to just like listen to their stories more than anything else. But my experiences of dealing with those people is exactly my experience of listening to David Icke talk to somebody else. It's like everything, because those people were all really high functioning. They were really capable. Most of them had, they had jobs. They had good jobs. They could do all of this stuff. They just believed in this one thing that it was obviously not true, but and David Icke is exactly the same. He's like a really high functioning person who just has this like
one thing,
this chunk of madness like underneath it all. And I found that really interesting. So I think that the lizard thing is a bona fide mental health problem.
Yeah.
And I think that in some ways, although I am absolutely, I hold my hand up, I regularly find myself taking the piss out of David Icke, and I probably will in the future as well. Don't get me wrong. And he does say some terrible things. And like, for example, I'm almost certain he is an anti-vaxxer. I know that his son was out a lot on the anti-mask rallies and all this sort of stuff. So I mean, he's an incredibly problematic person. But I feel like he's a victim more than a perpetrator.
And that's exactly what I mean by I don't want to be patronising, but I feel sorry for him, because I do think the second he starts talking about like the way in which they tell this story, and the second it starts getting mentioned, he just then one day realised he was the son of God. I'm like, oh my God, this poor man has delusional disorder.
It's
not
like
that
classic.
Delusional disorder necessarily really exists, but like Dave said, there are these people that which we still, that just come up every now and then, that just have this long-standing delusions that they're never going to go, and you have to decide how much is going to let your life be ruined by it. But what he's done, like the 2 people I've met that have had similar methods of thinking, have let it completely take over their life and have ended up getting into some violent disagreements with people about it. David Icke's no different, except he's made money out of it.
But had his life gone just very slightly different, David Icke would have been on clozapine at the age of 25 or whatever he was when he first said this. He would have been in and out of an institution for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
He definitely wouldn't have been able to write anything because he would have been on strong medication.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If he had just been if he hadn't been a goalkeeper, this is the craziest thing.
Yeah.
If he hadn't been a goalkeeper, David Icke would have been a long-term mental health patient.
Be in some kind of institution, maybe even now. It's a shame.
And he would have been quite a charming mental health patient, I think.
But then in fairness, flip that on its end, like, this is how I feel about it's not about this now, but I feel about our patients, like, the ones that have had those delusional disorders are no different from David Icke, and unfortunately they're locked up with their funny ideas, and David Icke's making loads of money.
But this is a much bigger
this is huge.
Because where does mental health... should anyone be in prison? Anyway.
Woo!
I think let's move on to part 3, shall we?
So the 3rd episode is about the Oklahoma bombing, which is about an incident where Timothy McVeigh, you may have heard that name, put a car bomb outside the Alfred Murrah building in Oklahoma and killed about 168 people. He did this because he believed a shadowy elite was secretly ruling the world, and he thought that building was part of the New World Order's headquarters. So that's why he did that.
I think mostly because the ATF were
The ATF were
there.
there, we've mentioned already, Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms Bureau. He had a problem with them because he believed that the government, who were clamping down on the Second Amendment, which is your right to arm yourself, he believed that was a New World Order trying to not let the public defend themselves against their government. So he believed in guns for that reason. He went to a lot of gun shows to talk about this, which is where he met a lot of extremists and militiamen, which he later may have had something to do with. This date is important because it's the 2-year anniversary of the Waco Siege, which is what Dave was talking about a minute ago. It's also Patriots Day, where a lot of people... militiamen, but also countrymen. Everyone thinks different things about Patriots Day. I could never work out what it was,
but it sounds like it was more or less a racist holiday.
Yeah, it sounds like it's everyone who's proud to be American celebrates. So again, a lot of the people that he frequented their company believe in that day. It was also the execution day of a Mr. Wayne Snell, who in the 80s plotted to do pretty much exactly what Timothy McVeigh did. So all of these things are on the date that he chooses to bomb the building. Now,
and I think it's worth saying that none of those things are a conspiracy.
No.
Those are all just dates. Whether those are, whether those are even related, but I think they probably are, just because those were important days to him.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. So very quickly, he was very angry about many things. New World Order, this government trying to control arms. He hated what happened to Ruby Ridge and Waco. He is a army man. He was in the army.
Military, yes,
he was in the military. Yeah. He is very disillusioned at this point. He goes to Waco and hands out leaflets about the New World Order. So he gets a lot of traction in the conspiracy theorist world,
he goes to a lot of
white supremacist world.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think
we'll
he
get
was
to that.
He was a white supremacist. Yeah.
So the reason, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Timothy McVeigh did this. We know he did it. He gets sentenced to death for it eventually. But the conspiracy comes from, he picked this building because the ATF are there. Now, the ATF would normally have had about 50 people in the building, and on this day, there's proof of maybe 2, 3?
Well, there's proof of 2, but then that proof is weird because they were in a lift.
Well, they claim
and
they were
someone says there was no one in that lift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's all a bit hit and miss. So basically, there should have been a lot of ATF people there, and there wasn't. So this conspiracy starts happening where they're like, why weren't the ATF there? And people start looking into it. The main bulk of this conspiracy, I'll really briefly go into it, is twofold. The first part is there's this Aryan power group who are based in a place called Elohim City, and
it's a town of white supremacists.
Yeah, white supremacists that have separated. Very not similar, but they've separated from society in the same way that the Weaver family did at Ruby Ridge, and someone called Carol Howe, whose dad, she was quite
just rich.
A socialite, wasn't she? And she had a rich dad, may have been important somewhere. Ends up going out with one of the really obvious white supremacists there. I can't remember Dennis Mahon.
But he's not in Elohim City. He's his own white supremacist.
Oh yeah, he has his own white power group. And so they have this relationship. She gets interested in guns. She starts doing the dial a racist thing that they have, which is really awful. But that falls apart, and she becomes an ATF informant somehow. She then goes back into this group. They get into this Elohim City, which is the white supremacist place, and she starts reporting on them. And some of the reports she files directly to the ATF is that they have explosives and they're planning to use them against the government. And this all kind of comes out, and so people think, well, maybe there's a link here. Also, Timothy McVeigh is seen at this place. Or, well, there's claims that he's seen near Elohim City.
This is everyone's lying, I think, about this. So they claim he's never been there, but he was caught on a speeding camera like a mile up the road or something. And it's obviously in the middle of nowhere, so it seems unlikely he would have just been randomly driving past.
So essentially, there's this link between him potentially being at this white supremacist society, and she's there informing to the ATF about it. So is there a way she could have overheard something being plotted? And it seems like in this files that she does say that there is. The other thing is he's seen at a strip club, but this comes from the strippers shouting in a. There's a beautiful video of some strippers all fighting in their back room, and there's a video there because the club owner gives some wonderful reason as to why.
These girls, sometimes
they're stealing, they're doing this, so I had to put a video in their changing room, whatevs. But he catches this fight, and they think it's hilarious, so they watch the fight back again. But prior to the fight, they're saying, there's this man out there bragging to me that on the 19th of April, he's going to be famous. Yeah. So they go, I wonder who they were talking about.
Well, it's like there's a mysterious German and a man who looks a bit like a military man sitting out there having a conversation. It's just like... really? Is that a normal conversation?
But they mention quite clearly on there, like, oh, he's telling me that on the 19th of April he's going to be famous. How weird. Turns out this man is someone called Andreas Strassmayer, who is the son of a German politician at the time. So again,
like
this
quite
wealthy...
a major German politician at the time. I think he was like the shadow secretary or something. He
okay.
He was something quite high up.
Something high up.
Yeah.
So... strange that this German politician's son is there with Timothy McVeigh, and they are potentially bragging about something that's going to happen on the 19th of April. And this, I mean, do they deny him being at Elohim City as well?
I mean, that's where, so at this point...
Because I feel like he actually is at Elohim City. I feel like there's proof of that.
No, there isn't actually proof of that, but they Elohim City say that they think he phoned there once to try and talk to this German guy.
That's it.
But I mean, they're definitely lying out there. So Elohim, his city, is another place where they say, and I think it sounds like there's some truth to this, like another Ruby Ridge almost happened. There was ATF agents surrounding them.
Yes.
And the guy reckons he just told them to fuck off, and they went away.
And they did,
but he's obviously. I mean, everybody in this place is absolute scumbags. One of the things that I absolutely love, and this is classic about the way Jon Ronson seems to deal with these like insane people, is that when he goes to Elohim City, which is this really crazy place where he has to go to the gate and press his buzzer until someone comes out.
Oh, he has to honk his horn 3 times.
Yeah.
Outside.
And then some like skinheads come out and like wave him in, and they allow him into this bit. But when he arrives, there's a guy trying to sell them soap. And there's just all of these like...
Well, no, they put on a Riverdance performance for him first.
Sorry, that's right.
And then the local soap salesman does a...
And he's just sort of like, you guys don't need you don't need conditioner here. You got hot water here. So what you want to get is this soap is 20 times better than the soap you're using right now. And it's just there's just all
and
of
that's
these,
a fact.
And there's just all of these like gnarly white supremacists just watching there, like trying to pick whether they're going to buy soap off this dude. It's a really weird scene.
It's weird.
It's worth seeing just for that, really.
But yeah, so the long and short of the Andreas Strassmayer thing is, after this bombing, he's allowed to flee, even though there's some clear links and he's been cited with Timothy McVeigh. He's allowed to flee the country. He's never questioned. Why is it that this man was allowed to get away when he should have been questioned? And there's some conspiracy about whether he was hidden away somehow.
But Jon Ronson ends up catching up with him, and he basically says the reason for all of that is because I had nothing to do with it, and I didn't do anything, and I'm just an unusual man. He describes, he sort of says, I'm an unusual man that likes unusual things, and so therefore I've got like caught up in all of this stuff, but it's actually got nothing to do with me. And I think one of the interesting things about this episode, probably, it's really just worth watching this one. It's a really difficult one to talk about. Really, apart from that description, there's not a great deal else to kind of get your teeth into. But the interesting thing about it is that the way it's made, and this is one of the reasons why this programme's so clever, is that it's kind of like a conspiracy theory itself unfurling. I think. So he starts the programme of saying, oh, there's a mysterious German, there's a society girl, and there's like a video of her, and she's got a big swastika tattoo on her arm, and she's with this guy that's like wrapped in a swastika flag as well and stuff. And he's like, and then how do all of these people, and this mysterious strip club in Oklahoma or something, how do all of these things, and then what happens is he picks those things apart and he goes through, and what the truth of it is much simpler. You know, it's much more nuts and bolts. He never really gets to the bottom of exactly what happened, but it seems like what happened was a bunch of white supremacists probably met up with each other, and then one of them went and blew up a building. And the question is really, did the German guy, was the German guy, or was other people like...
Oh, that Carol Howe.
Were they actually... No, well, the thing about her is, did she tell the them. ATF, and was that why they weren't there? But the thing about everybody else, it was more like, were they involved in it in some way? Or was it just him acting alone? Him. And I think chances are, it seems like, practically speaking, it was probably him acting alone, but as to where he got all of the sort of influence from and stuff is possibly the question.
Well, I guess, and then the horrible thing about the conspiracy is, if the ATF did know about it, why did they only save themselves and allow 168 people to die in a car bomb that maybe they knew about? Particularly
as a massive amount of those 168 people, it was a daycare centre, so I think it was something like 50
like very small children,
under. So I mean, it's really fucked. And I was never really aware of it at the time. It was before I never sort of saw it on the news. And I feel like the Oklahoma bombing isn't like a famous bombing that you necessarily... I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I thought I knew the name Timothy McVeigh, but maybe that's just because this is the second time I've watched it, and maybe I didn't know it prior to that. Yeah. But, I mean, it really
fucked that building. You know, that building...
it took the front... Well, he said he picked it because he knew that it would... because of what it represents, but B, he knew that it would be a good photograph. Yeah. Like he said, when the front, like when that's blown up, that's going to be
a good, super dramatic.
And it is. Like, it's awful. Yeah. The whole front of the buildings comes off, and it's a good like 20, 30 story high building, huge, and the front's just gone. But yeah, I guess the long and short of it that's interesting is if the conspiracy theory is if they knew about it, it's pretty fucking dark that the government allowed it to happen.
And of course, depending on what side of the fence you're on, you either 100% believe that they definitely must have known about it. Yeah. And it does seem very odd. It is like, why is a massive office that's supposed to be filled with ATF people, why is there nobody there on a like weekday?
And two people who claim to be there, it's proven that it was a lie. Because they said they're in an elevator, which... they said they were in an elevator when the bomb went off, but the elevator they claimed they were in dropped 15 floors and definitely would have killed everyone in it.
But then there's a really interesting thing there whereby he's talking to the elevator expert or the technician, I think, the technician of the building, and he was sort of saying that there definitely wasn't anybody in there. There definitely wasn't. And then he said, and then after you have this conversation with this person who you think is just the elevator guy, Jon Ronson says something like, so before all of this happened, you weren't a conspiracy theorist at all, were you? And then he starts coming out with loads of New World Order stuff as well. And so, like, loads of... Obviously, I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it, really? You get all caught up in it. I suppose if you're the lift engineer and suddenly you start hearing all of these conspiracy theories and you think, hang on a minute, actually, there couldn't have been anyone in that lift.
Yeah. Why would they say there was?
Then you're going to go down the rabbit hole. And I think that's what all of these fucking...
Well, I mean, it's not mentioned, but in the first episode, there's ex-police that are now leading... I think it's Police Against the New World Order is one of the groups that turns up. So it really does get everywhere.
Very quickly, that guy, Dennis Mahan... who is the leader of some sort of white supremacist group, but I'm not really sure why.
Doesn't look like a leader of much.
He is an absolute fucking...
snail.
Prick. He is thick as shit. And... I mean, again, it's one of those things where there's this really... if I describe this, it's going to sound absolutely horrible, but in the context of the way that it's filmed, there's some humour in it. He goes to a hotel room that he thinks Timothy McVeigh stayed in the night before the Oklahoma bombing, and he does the Heil Hitler sign and he starts saying, "This is to you, patriot Timothy McVeigh, Hail McVeigh," and he does it in this really weird, awkward way. And the Jon Ronson just does this brilliant thing where he just films the whole thing of this man making a complete prick out of himself, doesn't make any comment about it, doesn't
just
say,
let him do it,
doesn't address it in any way, doesn't. There's no need to say this guy's a racist idiot. Yeah. Because he just does it for himself, like 100%.
Hiling in a motel car park.
Such a prick.
It's awful.
But yeah, I mean, like I say, this is an episode. I would, like I say, you should definitely watch this whole thing. But this episode is very much one that it's quite hard to talk about. It's just a really interesting. It's almost like a whodunit. It's presented in a really interesting.
It really
way.
is that. It's interesting.
So I think that's the first 3 episodes of this thing. Like I say, next time we're going to do the last 2. One thing that we didn't really mention is that the kind of point, more so of the book, but to some extent the programme, is that Jon Ronson's idea is that if there really is a secret room, a lot of people say that all the people that rule the world could fit around one large table and this sort of thing. And he says, well, the whole point of me doing this is that I'm going to find this room. Yeah. I'm going to go and find these secret rulers of the world. If they really exist, they must exist somewhere. Because everybody's got all of these conspiracy theories, but they don't seem to be able to say, well, this is who it is, or this is who it is. Well, I will say, on the last 2 episodes of this programme, I think he finds he finds something.
He finds whether it's the people who are actually ruling the world, or whether it's just the thing that represents what all these people will believe. Yeah. I mean, something is real.
But we'll get to all of that. Yeah, we'll get to all of that next week. And what I will do in the YouTube playlist, I'll put all 5 episodes. Yeah. So if you fancy it over the next 2 weeks, maybe watch all 5, and then it might be a bit easier for us to talk about the last 2, because we don't necessarily have to explain it in quite so much detail, and we can just have our opinions on it.
Have at it.
So let's move on to some music. We're now going to play a song by a band called Las Ratapunks. They're from Peru, and this song is from a cassette that came out at the end of last year called Anno de la Rata. Las Ratapunks are great. That cassette is really brilliant. They've sent us a song to play that's called Los Ladrones, which we're going to play now. So I hope you enjoy.
trash.
It's the sweet, sweet trash.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating.
I love when I see
Leave the auditorium. It's only a movie.
Welcome back to Breakfast Punts podcast. This week's film for review is Fateful Findings from 2013.
I've hacked into just about all the information I need. No more books!
You were given a power. He's writing about government secrets.
I knew I loved you when I was 8 years old. I'm using it to make a real difference. I'm not ready for this! But you should be scared, because it is the truth. Act now, on your own, outside of the corporate systems and these incompetent politicians. I'm gonna get out of here, but you can't see what's about to happen.
So this is the bit where I would normally summarise the plot, but it's incredibly hard to summarise what the plot to this film is, seeing as I don't believe it really has one.
According
So
to
I-
Wikipedia,
well,
there's a clear plot, but
well-
it's definitely not what happens in the film. So
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote it.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to pick apart the plot and kind of add bits along the way to what we really think happened, because I don't believe the plot is what happened in the film. But I think first it's probably no one will have heard of this Neil Breen unless you have, and if you have, then God, why aren't we talking about it more often? Because he's a character. But the only reason I'm aware of Neil Breen is because of Dave. Dave somehow came across him, so maybe it's better you explain maybe how you came across Neil Breen and a little bit about why he's an interesting character, and then we'll discuss the film. Do you remember how you came across him?
Yeah, well, sort of. So I definitely know how I heard his name, and the way that I heard his name was that I listened to a podcast called Junk Food Dinner, which is, I've been listening to it for years and years. It's a really brilliant podcast. They literally just review crappy movies. So it's literally, we're more or less
We're mocking, we're not mocking them, we're ripping them off now.
We're doing a much worse version
Far worse.
than they do. And they did one of his films quite a long time ago. I couldn't put them in order. I think it might have been this one, but I'm not sure. They did one of his films quite a long time ago, and they didn't really know what to make of it either. And then since then, they've done most of his films. But I went onto YouTube afterwards just to see what it was like, because I couldn't. Their description, I couldn't fathom what it could possibly be like. So I watched a couple of scenes, and I think that this guy, within certain circles, has become quite famous as a person that makes bad movies. I don't think he is as famous as that Tommy Wiseau bloke that did The Room.
It's very in that vein, though, isn't it?
Well, I think
his fame is very in that vein.
His fame is totally in that vein.
Yeah.
He's exactly that person. But I will say, stylistically, and probably his story as well, is, I think, very different, although I don't know the ins and outs of Tommy Wiseau's story. But this guy is a man in his 50s, I would think, if not maybe slightly older.
Well, I mean, he's a man that may or may not have had some or lots or none plastic surgery. He's got a face that everything's very questionable.
His face is very
and he
similar.
could afford it because he's a rich man. Or was a rich man.
He is someone who fell in love with... This is how his story is, he tells it.
Yeah.
He fell in love with films when he was very young, and he always dreamed of making a film.
Yeah.
Never had the ability or the means to do it. And this would have been much longer ago, and obviously there wouldn't have been like digital cameras.
Yeah.
It would have been much more difficult to become a filmmaker. So instead of making films, he became an architect, and I think got into real estate and made quite a lot of money. And I'm fairly sure there's a house which is featured in all of his films.
Yeah.
And I'm almost 100% certain that that's just his house. And so he obviously lives in a big house, so he's obviously got a decent amount of money. He obviously got to a certain age and just decided, I've always dreamed of making films. Fuck it, I'm just going to make a film. God love him for it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a beautiful thing for a person that, slightly older to do, just completely out of the blue. Particularly if you have zero skills required to make any aspect of a film, and then you're also, not only are you going to direct and write and produce and star and do the music and do the editing and basically do everything. There's a brilliant bit at the end of this film where the credits come up and almost all of them are Neil Breen, apart from the other actors that are in it. But then at the bottom, there's a couple of names that aren't Neil Breen, but they've got like a star next to them. And at the bottom of all the credits, it says where there's a star, or something, or where there's a D,
where there's
or
an
something.
N or a B,
Yeah.
when there's any N or any B in the name.
Yeah, it's actually Neil Breen, and it's not who. So he's just made up a load of people to
So if it says
to
Sandra,
do,
that's actually him.
Then it's Neil Breen, which I think is brilliant. He's obviously quite an eccentric.
Yeah.
He, like I say, doesn't really have much skill, but he does have enough money. Like the films are. They're definitely not well made in any way, but he's obviously got some good-ish equipment. Like the equipment's pretty decent. I think he must have a decent like editing suite. He's able to do some extremely basic sort of green screen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's got the tiniest iota of technical ability, but he definitely hasn't got a clue of what he's doing.
Aww. But it didn't stop him.
It didn't stop him at all.
Didn't stop him.
This is his third film, I think.
This is the one that's got quite a cult following. I mean, he has a cult
I
following.
think this was the point where... So I think he made one film and it was, a few people saw it and it started to gather a little bit of like, what the fuck sort of thing. And then I think his second film really had that. And then I think this was the one where like everyone was then kind of into Neil Breen as this comedy character. He takes himself extremely seriously.
Yeah.
We did see an interview with him a little while ago and he's definitely not messing around. But I will say that's one of the things that is so baffling about his movies. How you could possibly make this if you weren't in on the joke. But then equally, if you watch him, there's no question at all that he's in on the joke. He's not. He's definitely no idea. Although I think he's aware of why people are watching his films.
Yeah.
I think he's aware that he can make... I think he's probably a bit of a businessman and he's probably seen an avenue that he can take his films into where if people are laughing at them, then that's sort of fine because as long as they're coming. And he has made money from this. He is now a filmmaker. He's not
Neil
an
Breen
architect
films,
anymore.
it's a thing.
He is a filmmaker. So he's living his dream in that respect. But he definitely... He described, I think it was this film, or if not one of them, as being based on the Iliad. Which, I mean, would be much funnier to the listener if you'd seen this film, probably, because trust me, it's not based on anything. So, I don't know. Well, I think what we're going to do is, do you want to read the... Do you want to go through the...
We'll quickly summarise the plot as described on Wikipedia and add bits along if we think. But basically, this film, it was not very clear what was going on throughout the entire film. But apparently there's a plot and we've learnt about what the film is about from reading it.
I think worth... Maybe just before we do the plot, it might just be worth...
hearing a bit of his acting.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's worth just to give you some sort of idea of what this thing looks like. And on YouTube, there's loads of clips from this film and all of his films, and it's definitely worth just watching a few of them just to try and get an idea, because it's hard to really put it into. But this is an example of Neil Breen acting when he finds his best friend dead.
Yeah.
I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide? I can't help you out of this one, Jim. With all we've been through, I can't pull you out of this one.
He does this wonderful style of storytelling, which is, in order to forward the story, I'm going to have to tell you things. So it's a bit like, my oldest friend that I've always known, or, I don't know, things like that.
I think that's how that guy introduces himself.
Yeah, he's like...
So we don't really know this guy that he's killed, but it turns out in the plot that he's like his best friend.
Yeah,
but
apparently.
But within the context of this film, we just see him having an argument with his wife completely out of nowhere for no apparent reason. But I'm pretty sure, when he first meets him, he does say something like, "Hello,
oldest friend.
I am your oldest, dearest friend." Something like that.
And that's how everyone's introduced. Like, there's no subtlety. The only way you're going to find out who this person is they are going to tell you with a little bit of the backstory. So let's whiz through the plot as per Wikipedia. So it starts with 8-year-olds Dylan and Leah, Dylan being Neil Breen's character, discover a magical black stone in the woods. With Leah's family departure imminent, the two vow to always be friends, but they end up never seeing each other again. Decades later, Dylan, now a successful novelist, that's not clear. He keeps getting these phone calls saying, "I know that the deadline is coming, but I can't deal with you right now."
There's also
and that's what hints at him being a successful novelist.
This is a really important part of this film, is that what Neil Breen seems to really like to do is break laptops and throw books And so there's lots of scenes of him sat at his desk, like you say, either on the phone, sort of saying, "Oh, I can't do this now. I'm looking into the government's secrets," or something. Yeah, we'll get to it. Also, it's worth saying that the children at the start, which is supposed to be him and this girl, when they meet again as adults, he's about 55 and she's about 19.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's apparently they're 8-year-olds, but no. They miraculously change ages. So anyway, Dylan, now a successful novelist, is struck by a car but miraculously survives the accident, and in hospital he rapidly heals, which he credits to the power of a stone. This black stone.
So he doesn't make that clear.
Not clear.
He just wakes up and rips out his rips out some lines.
Off. He's got some tubes micropored to his wrist, which apparently is anyway. Bless
and
him.
He's got a massive like Phantom of the Opera.
But the oxygen mask is on top of all his bandaging. Like, it's really bad. But anyway, this stone keeps like appearing in and out of his hand. It's never clear what that's about.
Also, when he gets hit by the car, someone gives it to him, don't they? Yeah.
But that's the stone he took out of the box when he was a kid, because him and this girl find a box of treasure.
Well, the box starts
under
as a mushroom.
Yeah, it's not clear. So anyway, this apparently, according to this, he has lots of powers because of this stone. It is never clear. No. That is never clear.
His powers are never even mentioned or referred to.
Yeah. So then he comes home and he tells his wife that he has not been working on a new book, but he's actually been using his hacking abilities, who knows, to uncover, in quotes, the most secret government and corporate secrets, which he plans to publish. But he always refers to them. He never explains what they are.
No.
He always just refers to, I am too busy exposing the world's most secret government conspiracies and secrets. And when the world finds out, everything's going to change because I've been hacking. But you never find out what he's going on about.
I don't think that Neil Breen understands what hacking is.
Or what a government secret is.
See, I think he might be a conspiracy. I think there might be a little bit.
Well, he never unveils it,
think there's something. I don't know if it's just because he talks like Trump that I always presume he must be like on that end of the spectrum as far as politics are concerned. I'm not really sure.
So then his commitment to this project is tested by his wife's descent into drug addiction and eventual overdose, which involves her tipping his pain pills down the toilet but then her rescuing them from the toilet and taking them. It's awful. As well as the constant sexual attention paid to him by his best friend Jim's underage stepdaughter.
So this is a scene we need to address this. So first of all, it's not constant. It's one scene, which happens like an hour and 10 minutes.
And out of nowhere.
And out of nowhere. Basically, he looks out of his... Again, he sat at his desk throwing his laptops around and his books around.
And throwing a plate of spinach.
No, that's a later scene. That one. So that one's on YouTube, and you should definitely watch that. That will be in the playlist. But he just looks out of his window and suddenly there's this girl who, up to that point, she's like someone's daughter. So
she's the best friend's daughter, but he's never really announced as the best friend.
No, and you're not really sure anyway.
Yeah.
But I thought up to that point she's probably 13, 14, something like that.
She is.
Well, she can't be because then she takes her top off in the pool and starts swimming around, and Neil Breen's looking at her, and then she comes and tries to have a bubble bath, which she's disgusted about because she's desperately trying to get into his pants.
Yeah, but it does say he's his underage daughter.
Oh, does it say underage?
Yeah, Jim's underage stepdaughter.
Keeping in mind again, Neil Breen wrote this, put himself in this part, and also cast the underage girl to be in her part. It's quite an important aspect, I feel.
So later, Jim, who is the stepdaughter's dad, so the underage girl who's trying to come on to Neil Breen, himself is murdered by his wife for valuing taking care of the car over listening to her issues. Distraught, she stages his death as a suicide, and Dylan cannot believe this. Thus, the bit of acting we heard earlier where he can't believe he committed suicide. Plagued by disturbing dreams of a mystical book. Yeah?
There is a mystical book.
There is, but in the film it's not really understood. There is no explanation of what the book... It doesn't even look like a book. It looks like a big gold box.
Yeah, it does.
But apparently it's a book, and there's no real explanation of this.
I will say that book and the scenes with the book, particularly at the beginning, they're quite Lynchian.
Yeah, they are.
They're like, in a way, if you remove the rest of the film and you just showed the really slow shots of like going up a corridor and then suddenly there's just this book on us for no reason at all, and there's no explanation as to what it is, and there's like a weird light on it. If it was just that, I'd be like, God, this guy's like got quite a style. This is quite impressive. Yeah. But then the problem is then it cuts to him
going,
falling asleep.
I can't do this book right now.
I cannot believe you have committed suicide. You have committed suicide.
No.
Why did you commit suicide? I can't get you out of this suicide.
It's not like you to do this. Oh my gosh. So, he's plagued by dreams of this book, starts seeing a psychologist who says that actually it's repressed childhood memories. What? That's never clear either.
I mean, there's a real desperate attempt at filmatic language there,
Yeah.
whereby he sees two psychologists, one of whom isn't really a psychologist, she's actually magic and she vanishes. And so I think he's probably anti-psychiatry, actually, this guy, because the psychiatrist that he sees, that's it, one's a psychiatrist, one's a psychologist. The psychiatrist that he sees, he sits at the end of a really long table, and then that guy's miles away at the other end of the table. So that's like, there's a really big divide, and he's always trying to get him to take pills. Whereas the psychologist, he sits almost touching her knee, like really close, and she's really caring and kind of spiritual. Ugh.
So then I'm going to whiz through this bit because I don't believe a single bit of this next stuff is in the film. So very quickly, whilst he's recovering from the car accident earlier, he's attended to by a doctor who turns out to be Leah, who is the girl he met when he was 8.
Except she's only aged half as much as he is.
She's 25 and he's 50, but who knows how that's worked. So starts a relationship with her, and he tells her about his plans to expose these government secrets he's found. Except that's not really that clear, and I don't remember that happening.
I think he does say, but he just says the same. It's the same bit of
Then
script.
I'm just going to quickly read this out because I don't remember any of this happening. So she learns about Dylan's plans to publish the expose, and a mysterious assailant kidnaps Leah. Using psychic powers granted to him by the stone, Dylan rescues her by teleporting into the kidnapper's compound. Going to visit his psychologist one last time, Dylan learns that she is in fact a ghost, and he must now face the council of spirits who guard the book that he has been seeing in his dreams.
Okay.
What? I remember the kidnap.
I was going to say the kidnap happens, but the kidnap happens, but it's just basically some dude tries to rob her of her handbag. Yeah. And then
puts her in a
shed.
Then
he finds the handbag and says, "Why is your handbag here?"
Yeah.
And rings her up and says, "I found your handbag and it's in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Why is your handbag here?" And then suddenly he's in another place with a load of garages.
Yes.
And then the guy that kidnapped her, for some reason, is just sat outside one of the garages.
On the floor.
So I think he beats him up, sort of. It's not really a fight.
It's not very good.
Then he does magic his way through the door, and he does save her.
He does save her.
But I don't know, the rest of it doesn't happen.
The rest, a council of spirits.
There's no council of spirits.
None of this happened. So anyway, right at the end, because that's the film done.
Oh yeah, then it just...
Then the last scene is him publishing this book, having a press conference in front of the National Archives building, which is green screened.
Oh, I thought that was like the Capitol building.
Who knows?
Or something. Or
And then he's divulging the most secret government and corporate secrets, except he never divulges them.
He doesn't actually say what they are.
And there's all these people reacting to it, and they commit mass suicide in front of him.
But they don't, do they? They do it individually. But that's
But one at a time, they all start committing suicide.
So there is a Wall Street broker, a corporate CEO, this is how they describe themselves, a senator, a congresswoman, a head of the bank, that's what one of them says he is, and an insurance company.
Yes, that's it. That's it. They all react by stating who they are and going, "I can't believe he's exposed our secrets."
And then they
kill themselves.
But the weirdest thing about that is that the same group of people initially, when he's given this talk and he says, "I've hacked into these mainframes," and it keeps going to those people who are stood in a little group, just 5 of them or 6 of them, and they're giving him a round of applause and cheering.
Yeah, they do actually.
And then he goes back to him and then he says more of his things. They're giving him a round of applause, cheering. Then he starts saying them, and then he goes to just one of them and it says, "Hello, I am a insurance company." And then he shoots himself in the head.
Like,
and then
what?
he goes back to him talking, and then it's like, "Hello, I am head of the bank." And then he kills himself. And one of them hangs themselves, one of them shoots themselves.
One of them does a bath cutting of wrists.
So
it makes no sense.
And then it ends.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, it doesn't end then, because apparently then a sniper tries to kill him, only for Dylan to kill him with his psychic powers.
Oh, is that what that was?
Fuck knows. And then at the end, mission complete, Dylan and Leah go to the place where they found the stone in the woods. And they put the stone back, and it turns into a mushroom.
Oh, that does happen.
Yeah. And that's the end of the film.
So that sniper bit is so weird.
I don't remember any of that.
Well, what's happening is he's doing his talk, and without any context or any reason, it goes to a bush, and there's a man in the bush that looks exactly like him, and I'm pretty sure it's played by him, with a gun.
Yeah.
Right? And then it goes back to him and he does his talk, and then I think one of these other people kills themselves again.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to the guy with the gun, who then just suddenly goes, "Ugh!" And then he's dead.
Yeah.
But there's no explanation as to why.
Well, psychic powers according to Wikipedia.
Well, that is.
I mean, I hope we've sold it to you. Some side bits. There's a lot of accidental nudity. He's getting up from
It's not accidental.
No, I know. He gets up from his hospital bed, and I remember saying to Dave, I was like, "Oh, this feels like because you can't. He's in one of those backless gowns, but it's done up, and you're like, no, I feel like this would have been a part where he probably would have taken
and as you
advantage."
said it, his bum fell out.
Yeah, as he said it, his gown falls apart. And there's a 50-year-old man's bum.
He's a very strange man, so we haven't really covered this. I don't want to body shame him or anything, but I think it is an important part of this because
he's not ashamed of himself.
But as a leading man in a movie, and as someone who's put himself in that role as a leading man in a movie, he's got a very strange presence, which almost adds to the film in some ways. But he's happy to get naked.
Oh,
There's quite a lot of nudity, but you don't really see anything. I did think I saw a bit of Breen Peen.
Oh yeah, we've got the Breen Peen side peen shower scene.
But also the other thing, and this is where I think it's maybe a bit dark, although I suppose all these people are actors, so it's part of the job in a way. But I think he kisses every girl, more
apart
or
from
less,
the underage girl who wants to kiss him.
And they're obviously, 20 years old or whatever. But the weird thing about the kissing scenes are just how immeasurably awkward they are. Like, it looks like two 10-year-olds that are kind of trying to go for their first kiss, and it's that thing where it's on the side of the mouth,
and
they're kind of like there's a couple of sex scenes in it, but the sex scenes are just like these awkward little pecks, really quick,
and then
both of them get their shoulders out, but except that you see a bit of Breen nipple, and you don't see lady nipple. And then they sort of kiss each other a few times, and then that's it.
Oh no! And then there's a scene of their feet and their clothes falling to the floor, and you're like, they must be doing it.
They're classic.
Yeah.
But
it's
very strange.
There's too many wonderful scenes to go through, I think. Watch the trailer, listen to him speak. I think you've got to watch this film to believe how ridiculous it is. We've watched clips of it on YouTube for some months now, building ourselves up to try and watch this film, and I've thought, I really don't know if I can ever sit through it. I'm now really glad we did. It's extraordinarily watchable, but it is so mind-blowingly shit and makes no sense, and it's hard to follow, and nothing makes any sense, but yet for some reason I can sit there and watch it.
I think it's very slow as well. There is it's
hypnotic.
It's quite there is a Lynchian, totally accidentally, but there is something, like the first episode of the third season of Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, when you spend 2
really
hours of
happens.
not understanding what's going on.
If Neil Breen had the sense to not bother writing a script and had just kind of done the rest of it without attempting to talk about government mainframes and systems and things, it could have probably been. There's a weird pace to it. Everybody delivers their lines in a way that makes me think that they've never spoken the English language.
But he must have asked them to do that.
Of course, there was a script. There was a script. Do you remember the interview that we said with him? He said, what people don't seem to realise is that I very carefully script my films. I do shooting schedules, and he uses all the words that he knows about film.
I think that's him letting us know that he's in on the joke.
Well, but he doesn't appear to be in on the joke at all.
So hard to know. I didn't think he was until every single one of them speaks like him. And he must have asked them to do that, because some of these people have been in other things and you wouldn't get away with speaking like that in any of the other films.
So I did a quick look on IMDb, and most of these people I think are extras by day. But he obviously, he obviously cast these people. He obviously got actors in. It does totally baffle my mind as to how something like this actually gets done. And I think that what it is just that he had a load of money.
Yeah.
He bought a load of equipment. But
he's
I suppose
fucking done it.
The thing that I kept thinking about is that if we just got all of our mates, right, none of whom have ever done any, well, I don't know for a fact, but let's just say none of them have ever done any drama, none of them have ever written anything, no one's ever done anything. And
no one's ever done anything.
And you say,
sorry, friends.
we're going to make a film, right? And you say, well, none of us know what we're doing. He said, doesn't matter if it's crap, let's just make a film. We're just going to make a film.
I feel like you actually want to do this.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We've got all of this equipment, let's just go and do it. We couldn't, even though we have no idea what we're doing, I don't think it would be possible for us to make a film as badly made as this.
You're setting us up for a fail, because if we ever try and do this, we're never going to make Fateful Findings or anything good as that.
No, we could, but that's the thing, in a funny sort of way, as a result of that, it makes it good, because it's so batshit crazy. It's so eccentric. It's obviously like the whims of this man.
Yeah.
It's obviously the way that I feel like one of the things that he's managed to do is he's kind of how he views the world, which is obviously in an extremely strange way. He's managed to capture it on film.
Yeah.
And there's something quite magical about that. But I feel like you almost need to be you either have to be really skillful to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And have like quite a big budget, or you just need to really fucking believe in it. And there is a part of me that feels a little bit like Neil Breen is just that. He just loves this type of film, and he's made what he thinks is the perfect film. But
does he actually think this is a perfect film?
I don't know. I mean, he definitely says that he does.
I mean, to summarise, please watch this film. I didn't know that I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. I mean, it's pretty shocking, but for something that makes no sense, is really flawed in almost every way. 4.9 on IMDb.
Yeah,
so
but
the cult nerds are in there trying to like.
I bet The Room has probably got something similar, or probably even higher.
But please pass it your attention. At least watch some clips of it on YouTube, which we're going to put on our YouTube playlist.
Yeah.
See if that like strikes your fancy, because.
You
I mean, it might put you off.
Yeah, you don't.
But
no, I think if you watch the clip, it'll definitely put you off.
I mean,
you have to sit down.
Well, no, because we watched clips. That's what got us
and you
in.
desperately didn't want to watch this.
No,
I've
wanted
been
to watch it.
Suggesting this for the last.
No, I did want to watch it, but just knowing how hard it was to watch 2 minutes of him speak and seeing that it was an hour and 40 minutes long, I thought, I don't know if I can do this.
I think as they go on, they get longer too.
Well, I'm glad we did. I would recommend watching it just for the. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. It's complete nonsense.
I don't think you have to watch this one either. You can watch any Breen film.
Oh,
I think we'll probably do more.
This one's fucking brilliant.
I've got a real feeling that we need to do more of these films, because I actually, as much as it,
Oh, I enjoyed it.
I think I want to see the other ones and just see where he goes.
I want to see it. I want to speak to him. The Q&A we saw, I want to rewatch that now I've seen a film, because I think he's funny.
Dinner, don't you?
Oh, I definitely want
Actually, I will say this:
dinner.
he does look like he needs a roast dinner. I think he's definitely.
He's got saggy skin, isn't he?
He's desperately trying to stay leading man skinny.
I know,
which is not a very good idea.
And May Query pumping something into his face, or just has a melty face. Good on him.
Everything about him is strange. Nothing makes sense. Oh, just one very quick pinpoint about, which I think in a way sums up Neil Breen, is that his Wikipedia page, which is quite in depth and kind of covers his life a bit, and most of his films have got them as well. The picture on his Wikipedia page is him pulling like a really ugly face with his eyes shut, and it's like he can't have picked that. Someone's just picked that as his official picture, and it kind of just, I don't know. There's something about that I feel like is a metaphor for his entire life. Anyhow, what score do you want to give it? You need to give it a score.
Christ.
It's a really hard one to give a score to.
Probably shouldn't score it. It's so bad.
On the one
but
hand.
what do we give Rabbit Grannies? It's better than that. Oh. Do you know what? Filmatically wise, it's not better than Rabbit Grannies, but I enjoyed this far more. So I'm going to score it probably like a -2, but I'm going to suggest you watch it because it is worth watching. Technically, it can't be scored. Joy-wise, I'm going to score it probably a 2 or 3 for joy. Technically, it has to be minus number, but overall, my takeaway from it is I think everyone should at least try and watch it.
I think it's probably one of the most interesting films we've watched so far.
I don't know if you can call it interesting.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
It blew my mind in a way that a really shit film shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I can barely put into words why that is, and I can't really explain it. But I definitely think it's worth watching. I am gonna give Fateful Findings 7 out of 10.
What the fuck?
Which I think is probably more than I've given any other film on
Yeah.
this. Just because I think
You just want people to watch it.
I want to give it. I think you're right. Technically wise, I don't think you can score it.
Yeah.
From the perspective of whether it's a good film, well made. It's not even a film. It's barely even a film. But whatever it is, if you
really
just look
nice.
at it as a thing, a piece of art.
That a man who already has a very successful career said, "Fuck that successful career."
That sexful career. This is a much more sexful career.
I'm not having successful.
Apparently.
I'm now going to have this sexful career where I make films. I am a filmmaker.
I'm going to employ young women to kiss me really awkwardly.
Yeah.
And just get their shoulders out.
He is Danzig's idol, probably.
Well,
like, I've done a career,
yeah.
and now fuck it, I'm making films. Except this one's a bit more in on the joke, slightly.
No, I don't think so. I think Danzig's more in on the joke than this guy.
I don't know. He was quite upset when people laughed at his film.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Breen, you're a hero. Come round for a roast dinner. Sorry for what I said about your face.
I think I don't think he'd be a nice person to meet in real life, but I still really want to meet him. In real life.
Definitely.
He's very much like Danzig in that
Yeah,
respect.
I want them both round at different times.
Oh yeah, that would be a shit dinner party. Right, we're going to play an old song now. This is from an old straight edge hardcore band from Manchester. They're called Area Effect. They released only one like mini CD, like this 6-track CD, which came out on Ruction Records. Ruction Records are still going strong now. I love this band. I saw them in the late 90s. They're fucking banging. The song that I'm going to play today is called Mainstream, and so here it is, Area Effect with Mainstream.
So that's pretty much everything for this episode of Breakfast Punks podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, please give us a little follow on Instagram or check out our YouTube channel. Go and subscribe to that because we're going to put loads of content relating to this episode up on there. As always, please give us some feedback. We love to hear some feedback and know what you do want and what you don't want, and just generally if you've got any thoughts on Neil Breen, and we want to hear them because he should be in your life. He's amazing.
Really need some Breen chat.
I would like to talk to more people about
someone
Breen.
else to watch this film. So
well, Dave tried to explain it to his band at band practice and just didn't know where to start.
Well,
so we'd like people to.
I was like, "Have you seen Neil Breen?" And they were all like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, mate." And then I just didn't know where.
How do I explain
this where to go.
enigma?
So I just sent them some YouTube clips.
And also, just tell us anything. Say hello.
And social media is being really shit at the moment, and not really sharing anybody's posts to anybody, unless you take a selfie. So if anybody wants to help us out, the best thing that you can do is to share us with your friends on Facebook or Instagram, and hopefully more people will see it. And just help us spread the word a little bit. That would be really appreciated.
Yeah, we like people hearing our nonsense, but also sharing lovely musics from people. So we're going to end with a music from a person.
From a people.
From a people. So we're going to end with a song from a band called No Relief, and the song is called In My Grave. They're a pretty new band from the South Coast down here. They formed either in lockdown or just before it, and haven't actually gotten to play a gig yet, but they are getting some traction online.
They've got a couple of gigs too, I think.
They've got some gigs booked up. This song is from their demo from 2020. We met Ethan from No Relief. He works at Goodman's Barber, which we mentioned earlier. We met him while we were chatting in Cloth and Wax. Mm-hmm. Really nice guy, and you should definitely go and give a listen to this band. Yeah, exactly. They're really good. So this is No Relief, In My Grave, and it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me also.
I know.
Watch Breen.
Watch Breen.
Don't let the 9-foot lizards take over the government.
They already have, Dave. They already have. Whoops. So yeah, enough from us. This is No Relief, In My Grave, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
you see? Unnecessary slaughter, killing the weak, killing the innocent. Death has arrived at your doorstep. I can't brush it somehow. I waste away inside. I leave for you to bow. I hate that look in your eye. I can't brush it somehow. I waste away inside. I leave for you to bow. I hate that look in your eye. Forever and with it. Forever with losing. Wait for the end. I waste away and die. I shiver in my grave.
All right, my little cunts. Did you say? All right, my little cunts.
My mum's going to have to listen to this.